My agenda.
Yeah, I did.
I forgot
That's
to.
the way-
I forgot to.
And I didn't print it out.
Is she signaling, are you ready?
Yes, you're good.
Yeah.
Since you are, yes.
Let me print it out. You didn't print it out?
No, I didn't.
Let me borrow a pen till then. I'll borrow. Thank you.
Need a pen?
I got a pen. So I'll just start it. We'll load it till then. All right.
I sent it late too. Sorry.
Starting the work session of October 21st, 2024, calling it to order at 6:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Brescher.
Here.
Councilmember Coyle.
Here.
Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember Patel.
Here.
Councilmember Patil.
Here.
Councilmember Pointer.
Present.
Councilmember Shmuel.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read the adequate notice.
Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975 has been provided by the annual notice sent to the Home News Tribune, Star Ledger, Desi Talk, and News India Times on December 12, 2023, and posted in Main Lobby Municipal Complex on that same date.
All right, moving on to oral petitions and remark, starting with the, starting off Joel Bassoff.
Am I on camera? Oh. Joel Bassoff, 17 Beach Lane, Edison.
You're recognized.
So first of all, in the interest of full disclosure for anyone that might be watching the meeting on television or on YouTube, not wearing a mask, but I don't have a problem with anyone who does wear a mask, and I'm not sure why anyone should have a problem with that. So that raises my first question for the evening, which is, can we get some instruction as to what would be the case law that would authorize a presiding officer to eject someone for wearing a mask? We've heard an opinion that that's within the discretion of the presiding officer, but we haven't heard what the actual legal justification is for that. And a question going along with that is, why doesn't the ejection of people for simply wearing masks raise fears of litigation? I know in other contexts, the council has rationalized not taking certain steps, for example, not adopting an ordinance for a public advocate because it could lead to litigation. Why not an even more powerful fear that ejecting someone for wearing a mask could lead to costly litigation? Okay, so that's one question I have. Another issue that raises questions is that I received the recent Edison Illuminator, and I saw right at the beginning, the mayor thanked 5 members of the council for supporting various projects around town, which of course ignores 2 other members of the council. Now, it's all well and good to recognize people for supporting a particular agenda, but this is a taxpayer-funded document, and it starts to look an awful lot like taxpayer-funded campaigning. And this is problematic because with any issue, particularly with spending issues, it's legitimate for there to be differences of opinion. And often those differences of opinion are principled. So people have principled, well thought out reasons for voting for an expenditure, but members of the council also have well thought out principled reasons for voting against it. And for a taxpayer funded document to only recognize one side of the issue makes it seem like the mayor is just campaigning for only those who will blindly support him and ignoring the fact that it's a 7-member council and it's actually perfectly legitimate for various viewpoints to be represented on the council. So maybe in an effort to level the playing field, I think the members of the public should thank Councilman Richard Brescher and Councilman Ajay Patil for questioning certain expenditures and voting no when, in their principled judgment, they believe that it's contrary to the public interest. And then going forward, my question is, do members of the council believe that those who oppose those expenditures somehow were not principled and should be ignored in a taxpayer-funded document? So that's my question there. And follow-up question to that is, why should the public be happy with what amounts to a campaign document being funded with taxpayer money? I have another question on the agenda. Item 9B, there's a $61,000 change order. My question is, why is that justified? Then I have a question about another item that's on the agenda, Jackson Avenue widening. I've been at several meetings and I've watched several meetings where people of that neighborhood have spoken adamantly against the widening of their street. They do not want more truck traffic. They do not want trucks closer to their front doors. So on what basis is that still being considered? Does the council see itself as representing the residents of the town or more as representing the interests of the logistics centers? There was also an item about the proposal for new logistics centers on Whitman Avenue. And I noticed a news report mentioned that Metuchen has hired a lawyer. This is on the border of Metuchen. The borough of Metuchen has hired a lawyer in opposition to this application. So obviously Metuchen is looking out for the interests of their residents who live near that proposal.
Joe, which number was that?
I'm talking about, there was an application, it's not on the agenda,
Okay,
but there was an application for a new logistics center on Whitman Avenue. I'm not asking the council to weigh in on the merits of that. That's before the planning board. That's all very well and good. But my point there is that the borough of Metuchen has hired a lawyer to represent the interests of their residents who live in the vicinity of that project. That's really the equivalent of a public advocate. Now, the people on the Edison side of Whitman Avenue, in this particular case, good for them, they're not gonna have to hire a lawyer to represent their interests. The borough of Metuchen is doing it for them. But not everybody in Metuchen, not everybody in Edison lives close to Metuchen and can count on another town looking out for their interests. So the question there is, do you think that Metuchen is wrong paying for a lawyer to represent the interests of their citizens who could be negatively impacted by a new logistics center? Please explain why you think that Metuchen is wrong to do that. And if you don't think that Metuchen is wrong, then explain why the residents of Edison
Thank
shouldn't
you,
have
Joel.
the same
Your
privileges.
time is up. Sorry. All right, so going on to the questions. Legal, I'll ask you to answer the mask question.
So I provided the council with a detailed memorandum regarding our legal interest in the matter. Because of the constant threats of litigation from the audience, I'm not going to go into the specific legal doctrine that I presented to the council. However, I will refer you to Grant versus Slattery, which is from the federal courts, which does allow for the council president to enforce rules of decorum in order for the business of the council to continue and for an orderly and proper council meeting to commence.
Okay, jumping on to the change order. Sonia, can you answer 9B?
Sure. The change order is due to some softening of that court with the dirt. There was clay that was presented, and so we've been resurfacing most of our courts. This is actually the first one that we've had this issue with, and so therefore, as you know, we are allowed a 20% differential for change orders through the local public contracts law. This is about 5%. So we're asking the council to consider this so that we can move forward with the project.
Okay. In terms of Jackson Ave, any council member who would like to speak to that?
Council President.
Councilman Pointer?
First, looking out for like the logistics center, my priority is the school, followed by then the residents that live on there. So to insinuate that logistics centers or warehousing in the back is a focus of any member up here, I think that's a falsehood. That would be my only comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would add to that that we do represent the town as a whole, and there has been a lot of complaints from parents of that school, and also the emergency issues when the morning traffic with safety is a cause of that issue. So that is the reason why this issue was brought up to be changed. Government is slow, and there's a reason why this has been needing to be done. There needs to be something to be done at Jackson now, and there are plenty of options presented. Unfortunately, this is the best of those options. I know it's not the perfect option, not everyone is happy with it, but this is the best of the option, and that is why I believe we should move forward with it. That's Jackson now.
Counsel.
In terms of, oh, you want to continue? Okay,
Yeah.
Jackson now?
Yes, on Jackson Avenue, I actually listed it in my comments, but as long as you're bringing it up. Like I said, I went out there, I spoke to the residents. The mayor actually took the time to go out the other day to Jackson Avenue. And the residents asked a bunch of questions. The mayor was supposed to get back to everybody, of which I don't know if he got back to any of the residents, because he didn't have a plan for any of the questions that they asked. You know, and they're legitimate questions. People wanted to know what you're going to do with the telephone poles. And he said, you know, well, and they said, you're going to put it on my property. And he said, no, we're not going to put it on your property. So they said, but then what are you going to do? Put it in the middle of the sidewalk? And he said, well, he didn't know, but he would get back to him on it. There was a lot of we don't know. You know, and to say something, like I'll tell you this, the residents live there, right? That's their street. To say that this is for the parents from the school, this is preposterous, okay? I'll be honest with you. If I was a mayor, right? I mean, I'm an adult. I'm older than our current mayor. But let's be real here. Why not put a sign out on Amboy Avenue, right, that just says, please drop your students off on Amboy Avenue. We have a police department here, and we will make sure that your students, your children, will make it to the school unharmed, okay? Because when I was a child, we all walked to school. I don't understand the premise or the thought of a parent that would need to drop their child off to a middle school. I mean, what is it saying about our school system that our children in middle school can't actually, they can't get to school themselves, that their parents have to drop them off at the door? So that the parents can get them to the door, it's either for that or it's to make the truck traffic so the trucks can drive faster down Jackson Avenue. It's one or the other. Those are the only two reasons why you'd want to widen Jackson Avenue and affect everybody's life that's lived there. So I personally, it makes absolutely no sense. I've seen this body push through many items on the agenda that the mayor feels that are his items. I've spoken out against these items because I believe they're not rational, they're not logical. It's like my way or the highway. So yes, that's probably why, to your second question, why I'm not on his flyer that's there. Or maybe it was because I didn't vote for him to send out his political mailer anymore. You know, we go to the Attorney General for different things. I'm keeping a list, right? Because during his upcoming election, I am going to list every law that I believe he's broken and ask why the Attorney General hasn't investigated him on these laws. So, you know, moving forward, yes.
I think we're going off on tangent here, but Jackson now.
No, it was about the flyer and
I
about
asked
me
about
not.
the
That was a
eliminating.
But I was
question.
just trying to keep to the Jackson now, and then we were going to move on to that.
Okay, I'll tell you what. When we get to that one, I'll come back to that. Okay.
All right, in terms of the, why is the Metuchen hiring to represent themselves? Because unfortunately, they don't represent themselves in Edison Planning Board. Edison Planning Board has its own representation in Edison. We represent the township in Edison. So if we have an issue with Metuchen Planning Board, we would hire an opposition lawyer, at least from my understanding, because we wouldn't have representation in Metuchen. We would have to hire an opposition. We, as a planning board, represent Edison Township. That we have experts of our own that represents Edison. So that is why we don't have to hire an opposition against ourselves.
Council President? Yeah, Beck? Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. On that same thing with Metuchen, right? What we just heard was if we had an issue. I sat in this council chamber where we had probably 100 people that were asking about cannabis. We've received hundreds of emails about cannabis that was opened up in Highland Park right on the Edison border. But this mayor and this council did nothing to hire an attorney to go after that. So just let's keep that on the record that where our mayor stands on it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Pointer.
Thank you, Council President. Just a comment in regards to that, and I had to be prefaced because I'm on the planning board. However, it's in front of the planning board, which means that by definition, it's within our zoning guidelines. So if there's an issue with the zoning of that area, then your proper recourse is really to come at this body because we're the ones that set zoning. Thank you, Council President.
All right. Council President. Councilman Patel on the Jackson Avenue. Okay. I don't want to go back and the same issues again, but I'll give you a quick moment. For the Jackson Avenue on record, I did ask administration to give us the documentation, backup documentation. I was told mayor's office has contacted residents, which we know the meeting happened. But there is nothing that came out from the brief of that meeting to this body, because this body is the one who is going to vote up and down that particular resolution. And if you don't have the information, I don't know, unless mayor thinks he has the votes to pass it, which is upsetting to me personally, and it is against the wish and the will of the Jackson Avenue residents. So my request is before Wednesday, hopefully you can provide the backup documentation, how many residents attended, how many were in favor, how many were in against, what's the resolution there. And you can give me another data that talks about the parents that have the concern about the traffic. Then you don't need to give me the name and address of the parent, but at least you can tell how many parents are objecting to that. But more than that, this issue should have been discussed actually in the Board of Ed liaison meeting, where the police chief is there, the fire chief is there, the 3 members of the council are there, and something has to come out, whether we should change the traffic pattern or some sort of a resolution and come to this body with that report, not just take random decisions here. So, Council President, my ask and expectation is by Wednesday, this body should have the report, what happened in that meeting and what is the outcome before we vote up and down. Thank you, sir.
Council President, if I could just add in terms of
Sonia.
answering Councilman Patil's question. So we are compiling all of the Q&A, and that was what was promised to the residents. So that may not happen by Wednesday because we are putting that together, but you'll get that before the next council meeting. Of course, it would be the will of the body to table this, but our recommendation would be to table this because our promise was to provide that information to the residents.
Thank you. All right, so I think that's a fair ask. We'll table it, we'll get the information, and then we'll make a decision. Moving on to the illuminator.
Council President,
Yep.
just for Jackson Avenue.
Yes.
I'm finding it's a moot point. I don't think there's the votes on the council to do it anyway, but if we're going through this, we're just going through this process, but obviously I'm not in favor of widening or changing Jackson Avenue in any way. I don't need to meet with the residents. I know the answer of the residents who've come to me and called me on the phone. I received a few phone calls. I know it's good for the community. A lot of us live in the area. We know the area. School's been there for decades. It's managed through many times of population and changes, and it'll survive. If it's a 180-day season that it has some issues, so it'd be for the 30 minutes it happens. I've stood down there multiple times during traffic, and the traffic times of dropping off kids is very short. It's a 25-minute window, 30 minutes tops, and it's over. So I don't think making infrastructure improvements is necessary. I'm open to listen to the council to see how this comes together, but I'll be voting no. I'm quite certain other members of the council will be voting no as well. So, and that's pretty much where I stand with that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Moving on to the illuminator.
Council President?
Oh,
Okay, yes. This question actually speaks also to to our tax bills that came, and that was several months ago where the same thing had happened, where the specific council members who voted yes were listed and then the noes were listed. And my reaction then, as it is now, is I was dismayed and very uncomfortable with that. Sure, I voted yes, and I was proud of my vote, and still am proud of my vote, but I don't think it's appropriate to put that in there. I let the mayor know that I thought it was inappropriate, that it was upsetting to me. He held his ground, that he thought it was important that the public knew, and I said, public wants to know, they can go back and watch Edison TV and see how people voted or go into the minutes. But the fact, I got my Edison illuminator today. I didn't even get a chance to thumb through it, but it's even more disappointing that it's in there again today. And I don't support that going forward. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Brusher?
Council President?
Councilman Patel?
Unless you want, okay. Thank you. I also received the illuminator, not that I care much, like many residents. I spoke passionately about mayor using taxpayers' money for his propaganda, not once, multiple times. And even I challenge these council members on this dais to stand up and say no to this propaganda. Going back to the record of Mayor Joshi, he's on the record. He never ever voted yes for any tax increase, yet. Never. In fact, during the mayor debate, he even said he will never vote for the budget increase, yet he doesn't like the council member questioning him on his overspending and voting no. So that shows the immaturity. But that immaturity is taken to the next level using taxpayers' money to send the mailer out. Not once, not twice, multiple times. I have reached out to many residents. Residents do reach out, why your name is missing, and they know that who is truly serving on this council dais, who are their voices. And one of the residents came, I think, few meetings back, and he said, there is silent majority watching these council meetings. They know the facts. They don't care what the mailer they are receiving from the mayor's office. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Councilman Brusher?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to echo my colleagues' sentiments. I got called. Somebody called me today. I normally don't get the illuminator. For some reason, it doesn't happen to come to 868 Grove Avenue. But I don't know that we've gotten a list as to who we actually mail them to or anything like that. But for some reason, I don't get them all the time. I've received one since I think he's become mayor. But what happens is people send me screenshots of it. To me, it's just, it's childish. It's the lack of experience of the mayor that we have. That's just my personal opinion of him, okay, which shows with how he runs his government here. With that being said, it's next, Council President.
Council President,
And Councilman McCoy?
I'll be brief, but I am kicking the can down the road here. For decades, there's been several mayors that have done the same thing. They've all had their agencies, and they promoted different things within that, and they've also promoted who voted for their vision and their agenda and their budget. We also have plaques that are on walls that stand for those who supported a project or didn't support a project. For instance, the splash park. I'm sure it voted 7-0, but if it voted 6-1, that person's name is still promoted on that project. So people can sit here and complain, but the right place to complain to is to file an ethics complaint in the state of New Jersey. So your issue, you have to understand that there's a gray area of what you care to talk about today and what you didn't care to talk about yesterday. I'm not saying the speaker in front of me, but several people come here and have an opposition reason to speak against Mayor Sam Joshi. We've had this propaganda for a long time that happens. Call it propaganda, call it information. It's happened before. It's been going on for 25 years plus that we've been watching, and it's been no different. So to say something today about how he uses the illuminator and the objective is just your opinion, but you really should just file a claim with the state of New Jersey for the ethics department and see what the outcome would be, whether the money is being used inappropriately or not. To sit here and complain at this body, we don't have the jurisdiction to change that to begin with. It's his administration, it's his choice. We can vote against the illuminator, not have information brought to the residents, which would be foolish because residents enjoy the illuminator. And I don't think you can find enough people that would say they don't want that. I get calls, I get emails. People love the illuminator to find out what's going on in town. You can posture, you can laugh all you want as a speaker, but I agree. I think you're wrong, and I think I can find a handful of residents that would disagree. You're welcome to count your people and bring them here when you want and give it your all. But in the same breath, there are several members of the council that are not in that illuminator today, the one I received, and there's no difference. I mean, so for the 1 point, he's talking about a vote. None of us are in it for other reasons. So I'm not sitting complaining about that. And I didn't hear other members complain they're not in the illuminator. So call it what you wish, but choice is to go and file it in the New Jersey Ethics and make your complaint there and see if it's validated and received and see what the outcome would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle.
Council President, I would need to rebuttal what my colleague said. 20 years, Councilman, how many times the residents have received the eliminator? None. So let's not lie to the public. Yes, there one time Mayor Lanke did send a letter to your record. He did mention who supported his budget because it was steep increase in budget. I opposed that budget. My council colleague did support the budget. In fact, I know Councilman Coyle opposed the budget, so our two names were missing, but that was one letter. One. It didn't go with the tax thing. It was more of the one of the letter. But this is a continuation month, quarter over quarter. So you use the right word, Councilman, propaganda, yes. The problem here is this council controls the budget. This is happening with our dime, it's the taxpayer's dime. If once in a while, I get it. But if you look at all the roads they were paved, Mayor Joshi did send a letter to all of them. And I questioned to this council dais, you all were mute. No one wants to stand up and say, hey, Mayor, you're wrong. Because there are certain people who just want to follow the trend. Either they're up for election next year, or they have ambitions to go somewhere else. But again, there is a silent majority. Just remember, people know which council member care for their taxes. With that, I will rest my case. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
Council President.
Councilman Coyle.
I'll be 10 seconds. Like I've mentioned before, call your marketing, call social media, call it the tax insert. End of the day, file your complaint with the Ethics of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. And as for me, I believe the eliminator serves a purpose. It serves to inform the public for those that do not have the time to follow the council meetings. The only time I would have a problem with it is if it misleads the public into saying that, hey, someone voted yes when they didn't vote yes. But I believe the public deserves to know how the council voted. I understand there might be more nuances as to whether or not why they voted certain ways. But unfortunately, when you're putting a newsletter together, the purpose of the newsletter is to be brief. It's not to recreate the whole scenario. So I believe it serves a purpose. Maybe it could be seen as propaganda, but I think it's a good thing to have the knowledge passed on to the public as to what is going on in the council. And that is it for that. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Anybody else that would like to speak?
Ship Freeman.
Oh, you're recognized.
I think we're playing games with the public because we're already hiding everything. And I'm not talking about this particular person that comes up and wear a mask. But if your incompetence in leadership is hurting us, okay? Like someone told me this morning, they said, well, Joyce, we're gonna guess who's speaking by voices and stuff. And they say it's very distasteful that you have a person running the whole town. Oh, it might go to litigation. It might go to this other thing. Let me tell you something. You need to be in my leadership class. I will teach you how somebody looks for your Achilles heel. And when you react to it, that makes your leadership skill poor because you react to them, you know. And I think that, I don't care what anybody says, Tom Lanke, Mayor Tom Lanke, he did not play this childish game. In my taxpayer, for 2 years in a row, I get to see, oh, this one didn't vote for this one didn't vote for that, and then we're in the communicator. That seems like to me like 3rd and 4th grade stuff. I'm a middle school and high school teacher. That's 3rd and 4th grade stuff, okay? Guess what? We're not going into fascism and all that. They're entitled. You're entitled to have a different opinion. You don't have to agree with everything. You're voting on 90% of his agenda, but you're the enemy and you're voting on 90% of it? There's something wrong with the person in a leadership position that acts that way, okay? I don't know if you done sniffed it or something went to your head and you're that ridiculous and you're that childish. I like it when people ask questions. I like it when people make you think more, okay? That's what's wrong with, like, I don't know, that's what's wrong with what the town is going through. Don't we want to build knowledge in people? Don't we want to do critical thinking skills? I think that's very important. That, well, maybe we don't do that anymore. Maybe we'll just do, you know, that GPT chat and stuff like that. We won't have the ability to critical think. Now, you can do AI and all the rest of that stuff, but is that the type of youth and the type of people that you want to be indoctrinated? You go to the schools, you indoctrinate and tell the kids, oh, whoever doesn't agree with me, all of a sudden they are communists. Something is wrong with them because they don't agree with me. Don't you see there's something wrong with that statement? You know, and Councilman Brescher, if you want my illuminator, you can have it. I don't need it, because I don't need someone that divides people up. Okay? If you got good leadership skills, because I've been on tons of leadership committees, if these two people don't agree with this particular topic, this is what you do as a real leader. You call them in, you sit with them and say, wait a minute, if you can't do A and B, can you at least do C? You understand that when it comes to leadership? It's sad to me that way. And it's sad to me that the people of Jackson Avenue, all right, you're going to have these trucks rushing down the street. Now, on Main Street, I've asked the commissioners for signs that said, don't block this driveway. And there's a street coming out that the school buses, they'll get hit that way. Nobody cares about that. But I noticed when I moved there over 20 years ago, it was just a little bit. But now I notice it was about 20 kids walking across the street going to soccer. All right? We're not doing the demographics. We'll just do all this stuff over here. We'll take this from the kids and we'll give it to the seniors. All of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of kids that came out of nowhere. So I don't think we're doing the demographics right. I don't think people are actually seeing these young kids that's coming out with a soccer ball. They don't need to be going across that highway. They need like a little cross or something that they can go across Main Street when they go back to the back of playing soccer. But I heard they probably won't have that soon because they're going to put pickleball courts there. So I don't know where they'll play, all right? My whole sad thing is about it is that we want to be so harsh. We want to just kill the youth off, but we don't want to do anything. I want a press conference where they say, look at the new facility we bought for the kids. Look at all the new programs we're doing for the youth. That's the kind of stuff I want, being from the education system. And I think this really disappoints me the most when people tell me, they said, oh, y'all had a regular clown show. Oh, yeah, we had a clown show. Because if you act stubborn and you don't listen, and you think your way is the right way, no matter how petty, no matter how childish, no matter how vindictive, you won't win in this world. You just won't win. It's very important. You know, you can hide people and all that stuff, but you know one thing, the sad part it is, you're not really hurting us. You're hurting you because it makes you seem like you're the most incompetent people ever and making almost $20,000 and you want to hide in the shadows. It's sad.
Thank you, Josh. Next person is Paul Finkel. You can come on up to the dais. You cannot. It has to be one person. You can speak after him, if that's okay with you.
Okay, thanks.
So just your name and your address, and then I'll recognize you.
My name is Paul Finkel, 13 Nottingham Road.
You're recognized.
I've lived in Edison like a really long time. And I now live at Nottingham Road. And my neighbor Lisa and I put together a petition to request the paving of Nottingham Road. Now, I lived here for 30 years. The road has never been paved. It's in terrible condition. It's a thoroughfare which is used by people who cut through as opposed to driving up to Oak Tree Road. So we get a lot of speeders. Our neighborhood has changed to the extent that people like original owners and older people have left because their children are grown up, as are mine. And new younger families are moving in. So now we have a lot more children on the street that we should be concerned with. I guess the thing that got Lisa and I interested in this was that we saw some streets nearby, like Fargo Court, Chandler, Devon, Peru, Warwick, all being paved when they have much less vehicular traffic than what we have. And that didn't seem to make sense, and it also seemed unfair. Let's see, what are our other points? We have a lot of walkers in our area. My wife and I are both walkers. I do it for my health and because I like my neighborhood, and my wife does it, for the same reason. And we have children. There's no sidewalks also, so that we're obligated to walk in the street. There are patch jobs that have been applied where the road is in bad condition, and they don't do a very good job of it. Within about, let's say, half an hour, the patch that was put down has been torn up by people driving through there. So what's the point of that? If anything, it just infuriates my neighbors and I to see all the, so now we have pebbles in the street where we didn't have any before. The road could use more lighting. I'm of two minds on this subject. I think the lighting would add to our safety, but it would also make it more difficult for me to go outside and do stargazing. So I could see the advantage to having that, and that's ancillary to the idea of paving the road. Speed bumps. About 15 years ago, I attended a meeting on the very subject of that, and some were put in on Stephenville, and that's nice, and was a good idea, but we could use one or two also. And there again, I'm not sure, do I want a speed bump in front of my house where everybody's going to be slowing down? I would accept it because for the general good, even though for me, it might not be the perfect thing. Let's see something. My colleague created a lot of notes here that I have a little trouble reading. We didn't know where to go with this. So I created a change.org petition. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's a very interesting process. It took my verbiage and using AI that somebody mentioned earlier, spit out some lingo, which is a little highfalutin. There were a couple grammatical errors that I had to correct. But it got me involved in a process that I've never been here. I mean, I've lived here both on Nottingham Road, Park Avenue, and I lived in a garden apartment. My kids all went to J.P. Stevens and all the schools here. And I've never been in this council chamber before. And outside of every other concern I have, I find it's very exciting to see democracy in action. And whatever disagreements you might have with each other, I very much appreciate your service to this town. And I've seen some great things recently in town. I know I'm being sort of wordy with this, but I really love living in Edison. There's a lot of great people. My kids did exceptionally well in school. That might be because my wife is so smart, but the conveniences here, the intelligence, there's a lot of very good things in Edison. And I'd like to see some more of that apply to my particular street, Nottingham Road. Apparently other petitions have been forwarded over the years as well, and the inquiries seem to go nowhere. I don't know whether there's someone to blame or not, or if it's one of you, please raise your hand right now.
Paul, unfortunately, your time is up, so you cannot continue speaking, but we will try to get you your answers now.
Council President,
Council Vice
a
President.
couple of questions. Do we know where Nottingham is on the paving list over the next couple of years?
So, Council Vice President, I did get a copy of the petition a couple weeks ago. It was sent to engineering to take a look at that and to try to coordinate various lists that we've put together. So we are working on it,
Okay,
and we'll advise the resident.
all right. The other, sorry, the other thing you asked about speed bumps, and unfortunately, this came out at the meeting we had on Jackson Avenue last week, and they had asked about speed bumps as well. Edison is phasing out speed bumps because it actually creates more of a hazard to cars. If, let's say, you have an icing situation or snow that's covering it, and you don't see the speed bump, that it does a great deal of damage. So from what we were told last week, speed bumps are being phased out.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry,
as I
Paul,
said,
Paul. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to speak. Everyone has 6 minutes, and they're not allowed to speak after the 6 minutes because it's only fair. So unfortunately, there's no back and forth, but we will try to continue the conversation. Sonia, can you just, anybody else? Councilman Pato?
Thank you. I have been in that neighborhood multiple times. In fact, once upon a time, I did recommend putting a stop sign on Warwick and Nottingham so that pass-through traffic slows up. The area, that road specifically is really in bad shape, that we all know. In fact, I had submitted back when Mayor Lanke was in office, 2021, 2019 when I was in that neighborhood, and 2020, 2 years, constant complaint about that neighborhood. And that's where, I kind of recommended as a council person, can you please put this road on the paving list? But as you know, there is a process. It goes to engineering department, they do their due diligence, there is certain budget, and they, prioritize. But I'm pretty sure this is beyond I would say, the ask, or the residents are waiting beyond their due time. It's a high time that we should pave this road, and I completely agree with that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Pato. Councilman Brusher?
Yes, Council Vice President, like she stated with the speed bumps, when they go to snowplow, the snowplows hit the speed bumps and they cause damage to the vehicles, that's why we're kind of phasing them out or looking to get rid of them. As far as the light, putting lighting up, being someone that grew up here in the town, I don't look forward to additional lighting. I grew up here because it was a suburban environment. I believe we're turning more into a urban environment, which would force me to move to a place that's more suburban in the future. But I love Edison, so I'm not looking for traffic lights and I'm not looking for lights. When you talk about your road and how you use change.org with the AI to help you, I was told at the Jackson Avenue meeting that the municipality now is using AI to determine what roads are going to be paved and which ones should be paved, and the mayor said that if anybody has any concerns, you'll be able to then see that, well, your road isn't as good as this other road, or you'll be able to do that. Now I know that Jersey City actually had a list of roads where residents could go up and you could go look, and then you could see who was above you, and then you could drive to that road, and then you'd go, you know what, yeah, they should be done before our road. That's how Jersey City handled it. With the AI today, in my points of discussion, I'm going to be asking the business administrator to give me a list of all the AI roads so that I myself can go out and walk around, because, we've all watched that Terminator movie, right? Sometimes AI isn't so good. Just to see whether it actually does work, because I don't know if it does or doesn't. I've been down your road. Yes, it's not the greatest, but we also do have many roads that are in similar shape. But I do know that we do, like Warwick, a lot of the major roads, like Warwick, I live on Grove Avenue, so a lot of your major roads happen to get paved more often because there's just more traffic on them, and they end up getting, I guess a lot more people complain about potholes at that time. So yeah, once I look at the AI, and Sonia maybe can get back to us with the paving list, we'll hope to have that road put on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Anybody else? Okay, as for me, Paul, thank you for being here. Unfortunately, we're not.
I'm done?
You're done.
That's it?
That's it. Sorry.
What about my colleague? Can she speak?
But you have to. She'll be next. But thank you for being here.
Okay.
We love Edison too, and that's why we're all here. And I just want to point out, Councilman Pointer implemented the bioelectrics when he was a council president here, and he recommended this company that essentially, when it adds a camera to our trucks that are picking up garbage or paving the roads, and it analyzes every single road that our trucks drive on, and it gives it a grading based on the AI. And based on that, I believe that is how our engineering department comes up with which roads to pave and stuff. But not to say that your street does not need to be paved. It should be paved if you feel that it hasn't been paved in 30 years. I think 30 years is the max. Sonia?
And I have noticed that some of the Q alerts for potholes were put in the system, so that's something that I'll bring to the mayor's attention, that there have been citizens' requests to fill in potholes in that area. So I do acknowledge the fact that there was some in
Yes.
there.
Okay, so I think we will be looking at, but I will recognize your partner, and then she can speak on to this as further.
Council President,
Councilman Coyle.
just point of order to your meeting. When residents speak, you usually have them sit down after their 6 minutes, so it doesn't confuse
That
the
is
invite.
true.
So I'm just not sure if you're going to go back to that or stick with this. I know there's new people here, and they have 6 minutes, but it just confuses the audience.
That's true. That's fair. Okay, you can come on up.
Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Lisa Case Bardish. I'm at 31 Nottingham Road.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I did just want to acknowledge that several of our neighbors thought it was important enough to take their time tonight to come and support what the petition. I would also say, as an avid walker, I walk this neighborhood 3 times a day with my dog. I will tell you that when they were paved last year, none of these other streets, Chandler, Peru, Devon, not one of them was in bad condition as Nottingham. Nottingham is in the worst condition because it is the through street between Plainfield and Warwick. So we all thought when you did that project, okay, Nottingham is next. We're waiting, right? It's the through street. They must be doing it the last. So I respect that you want to have AI as part of your efficiency process. Somebody actually needs to get on that road and walk it, because these potholes are degrading almost immediately. And I do want to note, and I've let the township know, I think it was you, Mr. Pointer, that responded to me, or Mr. Coyle, but a friend of mine in December came to visit me at night, dropped something off in front of my house, walked out, fell in the pothole outside my house, and broke her nose. And I can provide details for that to prove it. So we have at least one serious injury on the block. We have children on the block. I myself have twisted my ankle several times at night walking my dog. I need to pay more attention. But the road is pretty bad, and I just want to make that clear. Thank you for your
Thank you, Lisa. And I think we have it in the notes, Sonia, and we are going to be actively looking into Nottingham. Okay. Anybody else that would like to speak? You can come up. Your name and address, please.
Duran Rossiter, 21 Nottingham Road.
You're recognized.
I've been living on Nottingham Road for 34 years. I did drive into Jersey City every day, so I understand what you're talking about with Jersey City. I'm retired law enforcement. I raised my 2 children on the block there on Nottingham Road. My mom passed away about 5 years ago. She fell in front of my house and twisted her ankle. She's 90 years old. I have called numerous times over the years to the engineers, to the road department, to Public Works, and I have been told, oh, you're going to have to wait. I never get an answer at the engineers, which I understand completely because they're not there full time. I've never gotten an answer. I've written a letter to the mayor on his email address, and I get the patchwork job, but it is an absolute mess on that road. Absolutely a mess, and it's dangerous.
Council President?
Councilman Brescher.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Did they replace your gas lines and water lines on Nottingham?
No, we have markings for the water lines right now in front of all our homes.
Okay.
And that just happened maybe about 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Yeah.
Right, because they're replacing the gas lines and maybe not the water mains, but the like your valves, or they're putting meters in the street. because we didn't get our roads. That didn't normally start until they started that, like behind Grove now off of Livingston. They just did that last year because they just got the gas lines in and upgraded them. If Sonia could see if the engineer could check on the status of that, because that will hold it up. Typically, the township won't pave it if they're going to do the utility work.
If I may, I've been complaining for years, and including the engineering department, and we have never gotten onto any list, because I watched the paving list. There are no combined lists that we've ever seen. Nottingham Road has never been on it, and I know I've complained at least 4 or 5 times every year.
No, I mean, I understand that, but since the last administration and this one, the idea was for the utilities to put their utilities in the ground. Because if we pave them, then the utility comes in, and then we make them repave the whole road back to new. But it's typically our engineering department that would put the pressure on the utility and say, listen, we're going to pave this road, and it makes them speed up the process of them upgrading your utilities.
Respectfully, who puts the pressure on the engineering department, though?
That would be the business administrator.
Years.
Sonia, as far as I understand, 30 years is the max of any road that we are forced to.
I'm there 34, this woman's
Yeah, so I
55
believe.
years on the
So,
block,
Ms.
55 years.
Ms. Duran, I agree with you. We are in notice. We completely understand, and we hear you, and we are going to be working on it. Okay, but unfortunately, like I said earlier, government is a slow-moving beast, and we will get there, but we will get it, and we're going to make sure that you guys are taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President,
Councilman Pointer.
just a request to the administration, if the markouts are for new water line, gas line, and there will be repaving, if we can coordinate with the utility to do, I don't know if you want to call it a trade-off or such, but because how our ordinance is written, if it has been over 5 years, you only have to pave half of the road, right? So if that's what's happened in the Clare Barn area, where the utility is on one side of the road, so only half of the road was being paved. But if it's in such condition where the full street needs to be, maybe that can be coordinated to give and take, so to say. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. Anybody else that would like to speak? Come on up.
Hi, Ron Loeffler, 6 Nancy Circle.
You're recognized.
Okay. I amended some of my comments since I've been here. First, regarding the illuminator, I agree with Joel that the purpose of that flyer is for the public and not for the individual interests of the administration. The council is a body. It's made up of individual people, and when the council passes something, it's the body. The same thing with the planning board, the same thing with the zoning board. We don't choose, 5 members of the zoning board voted yes, not the other 3. So the body is in charge, and when the body approves the budget, council people should not be singled out publicly, basically shamed for not voting for the budget, for whatever their reasons are. Regarding a council member mentioning to file an ethics complaint, he's complaining to you. You guys hold the purse strings for the illuminator, and the concern is being voiced to the body. Second, regarding Metuchen hiring an attorney for a warehouse on Whitman, Councilman Brescher mentioned the cannabis facility, the retail facility on the border of Edison. Edison has a 1,000-foot from a residential structure and from a school, and yet Highland Park's cannabis facility was dissimilar to our ordinance, and yet Edison did not do anything to defend our zoning laws in Highland Park. A couple other issues. Some of these might come out as statements, but they are questions if you can respond. I like to watch the council meetings, whether it's live or recorded. I don't like the fact that they're being deleted, removed from YouTube. I like to watch them on YouTube because it's easier to fast forward, skip through, and there are meetings selectively being deleted from that format. Is that coming from council? or is that coming from elsewhere? So that's YouTube. The camera angles. We have multiple cameras here that the taxpayers paid for, and why can't we use all the cameras that we paid for? The masks. Is the township prepared to win if we are sued for depriving residents of their First Amendment rights? Will we win, or will we be paying this out from taxpayer-funded payout to them? Regarding the AI technology and the roads, for the potholes and the cracks, how many of these do we currently own? Does Edison currently, have paid for and own? The electric messaging signs regarding burglary. I find it ironic that the zoning board regarding billboards asked the applicants for an 8-minute flip time. The applicants asked for a 8-second flip time that the Federal Highway Association said is still acceptable and not hazardous, and these things flip every 3 or 4 seconds. I think somebody should revisit that and make it a static message if we are to advertise that around town. Regarding the residents here from Nottingham and going to the 6 minutes to the 4 minutes, that council is trying to hear less from the public. They wrote a letter to the administration. They sent a petition. Did anybody get back to them? Did they need to come here to this venue to repeat themselves in order to get an answer? And this is why coming up here and having those minutes is important for the next people, not me, but the next people that have a concern, whether it's good or bad, that they're allowed to come up here, spend 6 minutes, run out of the 6 minutes, and a spouse or a friend can take over this time. So this is why this is important. So did the administration get back to them via email, via letter, via phone call? Why did they need to be here today if they communicated what needed to be done? Thank you.
Okay. Any council member would like to take them?
Council President?
Councilman Brescher?
Yes, I'd like to as far as the mask goes, I watched the council meeting in Saraville. I mean, I guess kind of boring, right? Councilman here, watch the councilman. And in Saraville, they had a mask issue. The attorney told the council that technically they can wear a mask. Technically, they can not give their name. Technically, that can all happen. And the mayor of Saraville said something to the effect of he didn't feel safe with someone wearing a mask. So the only option was that the attorney told the body that if they didn't feel comfortable, that they could cancel the council meeting. And they did. They canceled the council meeting, and then they just were in the newspaper for having a special meeting to do their original meeting. So I'm not sure what's going on in Saraville, but it was the same individuals that we had to come to our meeting for the same issue. As far as Nottingham, just so you guys all know, and a lot of people don't know, taking care of your roads is part of the administration and the mayor's responsibility. And I tell everybody the same thing. Our job is to approve funds and to create laws. The reason why all the residents come and they come to tell us is because you have no other avenue, right? You've sent an email, you haven't gotten, but you're at a point of frustration where you just need to be heard and you want the mayor to hear. And that message isn't being conveyed to him, or he's ignoring it, one or the other. So I thank you for coming here, to explain yourselves to us. Hopefully, I think they're going to move this forward and look into our utilities and everything else so that this road will get paved. Yes, I really don't understand why we can't have the public on camera. Somebody just texted me. They said, I don't mind seeing you on camera, but really for the whole meeting, can we look at the public and see who's speaking? So I think we should go back to the old format. I do understand, when I watch the administration go to cut your minutes and I watch everything that happens over and over, it's about creating a veil, okay? Not about transparency. Our mayor used to sit up here in this dais, and that's all he spoke about was transparency. And then after that, we have turned off the lights to Edison light and the illuminator. The bulbs are dead. They don't make them bulbs anymore. That would be it for my answers for Mr. Loeffler. Thank you.
Councilman Pointer.
Council President, just to address the, whether we received communication, we put it on the agenda to acknowledge that we received it. Now, that's not to say that maybe a response back may have been more appropriate. I apologize personally that I didn't reach out. I saw it on the agenda and I took that as the communication, and so that would be it. Thank you, Council President.
Just on that point, I was told that you wanted to be here, so I wanted to make sure that we put it on the agenda and we hear from you because we want to hear from you. So we made sure that we put it on the agenda.
Council President, thank you. A question to Sonia. In past, we have always accommodated the situation like this. If there is some road that we potentially missed, quote unquote, and really it's in despair, and we should have a room, at least 5%, 10% to squeeze into current schedule. So I would ask on behalf of the resident if there is a possibility to add them into current schedule.
You actually must have read my mind. So that's something we'll look into in terms of if there are any leftover funds for Nottingham. So we'll definitely look at that.
Thank you. And if you need any more funds, this council will be happy to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Pato. As for me, Councilman Pointer.
Thank you. And I just want to address the Violytics and how that actually works. It's not paid by a per device. It's paid on a per distance that the program analyzes. So I know it's not necessarily, hey, we have 4 iPhones that are recording. It's based on the total mileage, for lack of better words. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. And as for me, I actually wanted some education from the legal department on the Highland Park. I understand that, they put on that dispensary, cannabis dispensary. Does Edison have any jurisdiction as to if we sued them, can we win that case?
I don't know enough about that to give you a definitive answer, and I would be hesitant to give you a definitive answer anyway. There are local ordinances that can come into play, but there are cross-jurisdictional issues that would have to be examined more thoroughly to give you any kind of actual response to whether we could oppose something just because it violates our own ordinances, and the level or likelihood of success on that. So if we say you can't have it within 1,000 feet of a school and their ordinance says you can't have it within 500 feet of a school, and they build it on the border where it's 750 feet from our school, can we fight that? You could certainly file a lawsuit, but without knowing all of the details of it and without actually sitting down and looking at the likelihood of success, especially when compared with the state regulations that you would then have to take into account, I couldn't give you a yes or no right now, but I can certainly look into it if it's something you want me to look into.
If you can give me a brief answer, because I am interested as to how would that play out, because it's my assumption, and that's it's wrong to assume, but I was always under the assumption that if a Highland Park has their own zoning laws, I assume that it would be their laws that will be followed within their.
Those would generally control, but things get fuzzy once you start talking about the boundaries between 2 towns, because you do have to send notices to people in the other town because they are affected by it. So they do have certain rights and privileges. It's why. It's why we had the whole conversation earlier about Metuchen,
yeah.
hiring an attorney to oppose something on the border, because there are certain rights and privileges that you can get to. But again, without the very specifics of the Highland application of what ordinances they're violating and within our town, I can't give you a better answer than that.
And going forward, if let's say we as a town have an issue, something along the line of the cannabis, what is the process to start the lawsuit?
I'll put that together for you, and I'll have a better answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay?
All right.
Council President,
Councilman Patel.
on the same topic, in fact, the resident did show up and he spoke on the dais asking this council to act, and my request to this council and the administration was to send a legal notice to Highland Park, not once, twice. There was an even email from the resident with a concern that the cannabis store in Highland Park is very close to their neighborhood and they were not happy. In fact, at that time, I did ask our attorney to look into that matter, of how come they can do without the permission of Edison Township, or did they communicate to this township, but we didn't fail, or we failed through that communication. Again, I don't know where the gaps are, but it's high time to rehash, because there will be neighboring town, they will come back. So again, thank you
It's
for
good
this
to be
conversation.
knowledgeable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to be knowledgeable. Anybody else that would like to speak?
Nisha Khanna, I live on 23 Nottingham Road.
You recognize. I didn't get your first name.
Nisha,
Nisha? Okay, if you can speak into the mic so we can hear you better. Thank you, Nisha.
thank you. I know the point about paving Nottingham has been beaten to death, and I think that's being addressed. I was concerned by your statement that speed bumps are being phased out, and I would want to know what your alternative is, because I've lived on Nottingham for 20 years, and in that time, Stephenville got some speed bumps, and traffic does significantly slow down because of them. Otherwise, Stephenville is a 50 to 60 mile an hour highway, if you know it. Same thing has happened on Warwick. So Warwick used to be, it's a cut through, as everybody knows, from Oak Tree to Stephenville. And because of the 2 speed bumps, traffic is now significantly slower. And I'm also a night walker, like many of my neighbors. So this really helps us to have people slow down. I had put in a request to the township for having speed bumps added to Nottingham 2 or 3 months ago. No response, of course. And now you're saying you're not going to do it for this snow plow issue? I mean, how much snow are we getting? If you look at the amount of snow that we've been getting over the last few winters, I actually got rid of my snowblower because that's going away. We are changing zones. We've already become 1 zone warmer. So I think that's a diminishing problem. But in addition, my question is, what is your alternative? Are you going to actually put a cop on my street to make sure there are people whizzing by at 50 and 60 miles an hour on Nottingham because they're cutting through from Plainfield to Warwick and then to go to Oak Tree or Stephenville? And without an alternative, I don't think you can have a decision like we are phasing out speed bumps. So you need some kind of response to us for how are you then going to control the speed of traffic on suburban streets where, as my friends have said, we have lots of small children and us residents walking. Thank you.
I understand, Nisha. And just a quick question for clarification. When did those speed bumps come on Warwick and the other street? Do you know?
I would say Warwick was 7, 8 years ago. 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
And Stephenville was about the same time or a little bit earlier.
Okay. So,
And I remember there was a significant issue on Warwick and it was discussed and there may have been town council discussions,
Okay.
but I don't know more.
I would like to ask the engineering because they are the ones that should be answering this question. They will have the knowledge on it. So Sonia, Brian, if you are done with your speaking time, then I can take over and answer. Okay, thank you. You can have a seat. Brian? So the question is, what are our alternatives if speed bump is not it?
So there are, when you do traffic calming, it's on a case-by-case basis, and you typically try to choose which scenario best fits what you are trying to achieve. Speed humps are, they have other issues beyond just maintenance and
Okay, I think we're good.
So there's issues beyond just maintenance and snow plowing concerns. Some studies that have been performed by the National Highway Association has also shown while it does decrease speed on the approaches to the speed humps, you actually have an increased speed between the speed humps. So then you're creating a higher density of speed humps, and then we have drainage concerns and everything else. The more current approach to traffic calming is to create friction and optical illusions. So if it's a dead straightaway, which I believe Nottingham is mostly a straightaway, not really any curves, you tend to want to narrow the street and make the driver feel like they're in an alleyway, which should cause them to slow down. If there are curves, there are optical illusions you can do with ticks along the side of the road and so forth. As we were talking tonight, I've already emailed our traffic safety division to see if they can put out signs and take some measurements for us so we can see what the speeds actually are and try to find the best method of slowing traffic.
Well, thank you for being proactive, Brian. I think that will be it. I would assume that would be it, that we will have to essentially evaluate the road and figure out what's...
Entire classes on traffic calming.
Yeah.
They tend to have to, you want to apply them in entire neighborhoods when possible, because once you do it on one road, you're forcing the traffic onto another roadway, and then it's just a trickle-down effect.
Okay. So I think we can, I would assume there are plenty of roads on Oak Tree and in that neighborhood where there's a lot of cut-throughs, and maybe we can do an overall study and see how we can slow down the traffic that people want to cut through, because I don't think that's what the residents want. They want to make sure that the main traffic goes through the main roads.
Right.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Anybody else that would like to speak?
Anthony Diamond, 25 Wiley. I was looking up at your street. It's a pretty small street. It shouldn't take a team of engineers to get out there and have it paved, in my opinion. So hopefully that gets paved for you guys soon. Council President, you're actually, whoever brought up a good point. I was thinking about this. Our town is so centrally located that I believe our interests don't stop at our borders. It doesn't. So, and come to think, and maybe something for the attorney, I don't know the answer, but I always thought about this. You look at a town like Metuchen, which has grown 350% over the last 10 years. And to leave Metuchen, you touch Edison. You have to, on our soil, right? So that affects our town just as much, whether it's our response time for our first responders, whatever it may be. So does the township have, or within its right, I don't know, maybe file a lawsuit where we could say, hey, Metuchen is liable they should be paying for part of our roads. They should be paying and forking over some of the costs for some of these projects. I always thought that. I don't know which way. We could probably go through a list, but I think that for them to build, let's say, I'm not just picking on them, believe me, but I'm just using them as an example because they are in the center of our town. They build and build and build. They are surrounded by us, and I think it affects us. It affects our interest as residents here. So, they have no problem sending an attorney to the planning board. Now, I am not for the Whitman Ave warehouse. That for another day. But that would be a disaster there. But they send their lawyer here. They have no problem doing that to us. You know what I mean? So I think it's something that we should consider, not to be, the size of our town and our interests. So something to keep, I don't know, something to, I just thought about. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Anthony. And I think that is something we are thinking about, and the legal is going to provide us with a memo to educate the council as to where our legal jurisdiction and where our options lie in this particular thing. Councilman Brusher.
Yeah, I hearing about the traffic and this and that, I wish the public would just maybe do a little bit of research. And now I'm going to quote numbers, right? But the numbers are not actually accurate, but they'll be close. I guess we all know that Woodbridge is the size of Edison, probably exactly. Down to the residents, down to the square miles, it's about as close as you're going to come. Metuchen is tiny compared to Edison, actually really, really tiny. But there was something published in the paper just a little while ago that gave a list of tickets per town, right? And Metuchen had something like 4,000 or 5,000 tickets that it gave a year. And Edison gave something like 8,000 tickets a year. and Woodbridge gave like 34,000 tickets a year. Now this is the same statistic that's been out for, I'm going to say 10 years, 20 years. It's been quite a while. And I did bring it to the chief's attention because I had questions about that when I seen that data. And he told me that, we can't, the chief of police cannot dictate that police officers write tickets. That's been found to be like illegal, to do it as like a revenue source. I think our attorney would agree with that, correct? But here's the alarming part, and this is what I said to him, but nobody could explain this to me. So people in Woodbridge drive like radicals, right? Speeding, whatever they're doing. Then they drive into Edison, and all of a sudden they slow down, they obey all our laws, and then they drive into Metuchen, and they drive radically again. So it just defied kind of logic as to, why we don't write those tickets. But when I hear the residents come up over and over about enforcement, right, I think it's more that it's not a coincidence. I think if there was more enforcement, right, we'd probably see happier residents. Instead of having 8,000 tickets or 6,000, whatever we write, and we had 36,000, the mayor would probably end up having a couple $1 million in his budget and be able to do a 0% tax increase for the public. So, I just think the public should be aware of it because everybody has been coming up here talking about speeding and traffic and stuff like that. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Besher. Anybody else that would like to speak? All right, seeing none, can I
Motion
get?
to close the public portion.
And may I have a second?
Second.
That's a motion by Councilman Coyle, second by Council Vice President. All in favor?
Right, Council President.
Moving on to reports from all council committees. Starting on my right, Councilman Brusher,
None at this time, sir.
Councilman Coyle.
Council President, I don't have anything to report, but I did admire Papiani Park and all the great work there done by DPW and the Township's administration, and I'm excited for the celebration of Diwali and what's going on there. No need to have a committee meeting to see what's happening, just drive through there. It's quite amazing, and looking forward to this celebration.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Council Vice President.
Yes, starting with Human Relations Commission, meeting was held on October 8th, and we welcomed a student liaison from Edison High School named Brooklyn. We went over the vision statement, and the vision statement is, our vision is to cultivate a community in which every individual is embraced, celebrated, and empowered. We strive for a society that recognizes and appreciates the richness of its diversity, where people from all backgrounds, culture, and identities are treated with dignity and respect. Through education, advocacy, and collaboration, we aim to foster an environment that promotes understanding, empathy, and equality. Our vision is to build bridges across differences, eliminate prejudice and discrimination, and create a community where everyone has equal opportunities to thrive. The discussion that we had included, we started with forming subcommittees, and a fundraiser committee will have on it Rashid Khan, Mansi Mathur, and Rupal Patel. School committee will be Elizabeth Conway and Alan Arthur. Library committee will be myself and Steve Nagel. And Brooklyn, the student liaison, discussed some issues that are currently happening in Edison High School. We plan to have the next meeting on November 6th, and at that meeting, we'll bring donations for Hands of Hope, and Charlie Smaro will be our guest. And that is it for the Human Relations Commission. Library Board was held on the 17th last week. Major points out of that meeting were that there is an RFP out for the North Edison branch with a pre-bid meeting for interested contractors on the 23rd of this month at 11 a.m. in the North Edison branch. Friends of the Library book and bake sale is on the 25th from 10 to 8 and the 26th from 10 to 5 at the North Edison branch with a preview for members of the Friends on 10/24 from 5 to 8. And that is the end of my committee and commission reports.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Councilman Patel.
None at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Pointer.
Thank you, Council President. The subcommittee in regards to the rules and procedures of council met at the Wednesday meeting from the last Wednesday's meeting. We are meeting again this upcoming Wednesday before. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. As for me, I attended, let me just pull up my notes. Open space in this chamber on October 10th. And one of the issues that we wanted to pursue was the increasing in people that are biking and the ability to bike. And one of the ideas that we had was in order to increase electric cars, I know that we give out credits for any electric charging that the building provides. So the idea was that if they can maintain, let's say, 4 paddle assist bikes for the building, for the residents to use of that building, we can give them a credit for a parking spot. Would that be something we can do?
I would have to look into the logistics of that. My initial inclination is to say probably, but I would have to look into the details of it and whether or not you can. You're talking about giving them a credit against their required parking?
Yes.
That may run into, I would have to look into it more closely, but it may run into difficulties with zoning laws. But the short answer is maybe.
Okay, so maybe can we add it to my discussion items for the next work session? And wanted to just point out some of the limitations we were thinking. We were thinking that, at max it would be 3 credits that they can get. The first 2 credit being for every bike, 4 bikes per credit, and then the last one being worth around 8 bikes per credit. And the building that, wants those credit has to have either a bike path, a sidewalk, or a shared bike route to either a park, a school, or a place of shopping, like a shopping center.
So it would only certain areas would qualify?
Yeah, because we don't want, if there's no way for someone to use those bikes and we don't have the infrastructure in place, it doesn't mean anything if they have those bikes and no one's using it. So if they have specific routes, that would also increase an incentive for the township to increase bike paths and walkability within our town. All right, and the other condition that I was thinking of was that they must provide a report at the end of the year to essentially state that those bikes substantiate that their bikes are maintained and then they are, in use, or whatever report of some sort like that. So that was the main conversation at Open Space Committee. We also discussed the update to the Central Park and what the trade-offs will be, but I am waiting on the updated path for Central Ave, or maybe I need to make a meeting. Is that what the situation is? Where's the limit on that? Okay, so we'll set up a meeting with the engineering and move forward on that issue. Moving on to points of lights. Any council member with point of lights?
Councilor President.
Councilman Patel.
Thank you to administration and DPW for doing a wonderful job on Papiani Park. It's looking good. This week really starts the Diwali festival. It's a long festival, so whoever is celebrating is a festival of light. It's one of the largest festivals that Indian Americans celebrate, and we are a very diverse town, so wish everyone a very, very happy Diwali. Also, reminder, because Diwali is being celebrated with firecrackers, please be aware that we have friends, pets especially, as well as neighbors. So be mindful when you celebrate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Patel.
Yes.
Council Vice President.
Yes. We had the trunk or treat, or I should say the public safety, Public Works, Recreation did a wonderful job with trunk or treat on Saturday. It was a beautiful day, very, very well attended, and I would say the highlight for me was seeing our chief of police dressed in a clown outfit, which would have been suitable for coming to the dais to make a public comment. He did a great clown job. I also want to wish our Jewish friends a very happy and blessed Sukkot. And Councilman Patil already mentioned Diwali, and I guess happy Halloween as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Anybody else?
Council President.
Councilman Coyle.
Just want to share the grand opening, a ribbon cutting of the recycling center that was taken care of by the administration, DPW. I think it was a grand slam. I think there's been several residents that have come to this podium talking about how Woodbridge does it. And obviously, most of them know that we get things done around here, and we do a lot more than Woodbridge. I'm really excited. I mean, this was an opportunity that you can drive through and drop off a TV, debris, recycling. If you want to get it out that moment, out of your garage or out of your attic, you can go down, pull up in a pickup truck, present your license that you're a resident, and get rid of something that's in your way. So I thank the administration and the council for supporting this opportunity. When we bought those dumpsters, we remember that day and look at the use. I think it's going to be convenient, and the residents are going to love the convenience. That's what it's about. So thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mayor Sam Joshi.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle. Councilman Pointer?
Just I'd like to mention health items from time to time. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is something that has affected friends of mine. So with that, I just want to bring attention to it. Please schedule for mammograms and your yearly follow-ups. It'd be appreciated. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. As for me, I also want to say congratulations to the DPW and all the departments that hosted the trunk or treat. It was a wonderful event. My daughter had a wonderful time, and so did Councilman Pointers. And happy Halloween, happy Diwali, and happy Sabak. That's so good. And I also wanted to congratulate the DPW on their grand opening on the recycling. I'm really excited. I think that will serve the township well. I also want to mention on October 18th over here in this chamber, the Governor Murphy came here to sign a new law that enforces tougher penalties for those convicted of invasions and burglaries. And this was something pushed by our Mayor, Sam Joshi, and our Police Department, Chief Brian. And I am glad that we got this done, because this is essentially a gift to all New Jerseyans to have a peace of mind. And the peace of mind just makes the fluffiest of the pillows when you want to go to sleep. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the home invasion or the burglaries. It's about the after effects and the echoes and the feeling of being invaded in your safe space. And I'm hoping that this law will prevent even one future home burglary. That would be helpful. Moving on.
Council President,
Councilman Coyle?
I have to echo the sentiments of what you mentioned. Mayor Sam Joshi's initiative to increase the threat of harm in our communities and being the first mayor to initiate this to the governor. And he pushed hard with this administration and the support of this council. And look, out of 534 municipalities in this state, Edison was the first to push to make sure that crime mattered and harsher penalties were necessary. So I truly applaud the administration, this council, and Mayor Sam Joshi for making it happen, because it certainly was a rough road being the first to speak out. And we had the support of the chief, and we had the data, and we knew what was right for Edison residents. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Coyle.
Mr. President, though.
Councilman Brescher.
Yes, I mean, I first of all, in reading the newspaper article, it was a resident in Edison that they thanked the governor. I could look her name up, but she was the one that I think initiated it. But what got me interested was the data, because I would have thought, you know, as we know, right, all I do is look at data. I challenge anybody in Edison just to take a look at it and to see if going from 5 years to 10 years has any effect whatsoever. Council President, I know you look perplexed, like it must, but I'm asking every council member here and every resident to please just look at the data.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 7 from the Business Administration, A through C. Any questions or comments from the council?
Council President?
Council Vice President?
Yes, on C, what are do we have specified the special projects for consulting services for this increase in the contract amount?
Yes, so they're general consulting. So what they do is there's some FEMA-related consulting that they provide to us. Also, we had some issues with our health care and some of our policies that we had alongside with some of our not only healthcare, but extra benefits plans that we were having issues with. So there was a lot of analysis being done and help to us. So that was for those services. So it's a general array of services that were provided to us.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else on number 7?
Council Vice President?
Yes.
In regards to item B, I know I'm in favor of it, but I'm just curious, just we've had the same resolution come up a couple of times. So is there consideration of just having a larger not to exceed amount in the future?
I think this may be a little bit different than previous ones. I will double check to see what the other amounts were for specifically.
They were all 50,000 increments, and I'm not, again, not opposed to the expenditure, but instead of having 3 50,000 not to exceed resolutions, if we can have, if it's whether it's 100,000 or 150,000, because this may prolong the procurement process in return in terms of material that they may be looking for.
I understand. I will take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President.
Thank you. Anyone else for 7? Okay, going on to 8 from the Department of Finance, A through G. Any questions? Okay. I actually had several, and it's about G, the Resolution Best Practices Inventory Questionnaire. On question 10, which talks about the budget timeframes, it seems to me, in looking at that, that we have not been complying with those budget timeframes. And I'm wondering if moving forward, that will change, if we are going to be closer to those dates that are given.
Okay, yes, it's our intention to, for the 2025 budget, to do our best to comply with the timeline. The problem is trying to assemble, there's so many data points of information that have to come together to put the budget together, part of which also involves what's included in the governor's proposed budget, which he doesn't give until, not long before the budget deadline comes up. So those are challenges that we have in getting accurate estimates as best we can for our health benefits insurance. So you put all those together, those are some of the challenges we face. We try every year to get closer to it, but get challenged by getting accurate information.
Okay, I hope we can move it up, because it just seems like it's moving to later and later, and I hope we can get it closer to the timeframes that they give. I also had a question on, it mentioned on number 22 was about the EV charger, and we have the one EV charger, as far as I can see, that's in the parking lot. As far as I know, that charger has not been working for a long time. I haven't tried it recently, but is there any update on if that is a functioning charger?
Yeah, if,
Let me have Ray Porio come up and explain to you.
okay.
Okay.
That charger came through a grant through the county several years ago, multiple years ago. It's no longer supported by the vendor, and we can't get parts for it. I know the administration has in their planning this year, next year, I know we're putting in new conduit for a whole bunch of EV chargers, not only there, but throughout the town. But, the 1 or 2 that we have here, and there's 1 or 2 at the library, they're past its life expectancy.
So in this questionnaire, it's indicated that we do have a charger. Now, if you want to be technical, we have a charger, it just doesn't happen to work. Is that, so I'm just wondering, is that accurately documented when they say, yes, we have a charger?
I wasn't part of that best practice.
The plan is to have it replaced, so the question is whether we have one or not. We've answered this before with best practices, and we haven't gotten additional questions on it. whether it was operating or not. Obviously, we have one, whether, the changes need to be made, which they are, because the plan is not only to change the conduit, but also resurface the parking lot. So they haven't questioned whether it is operable or not.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a little disingenuous to say, yes, we have a charger. I mean, again, technically we do, but it hasn't worked in a long time. The last one is number 55, which is the transparency having to do with the minutes, agendas, committees. And once again, I know there have been a lot of complaints from residents about the unavailability of minutes, or at least timely availability of minutes, and also the fact that there are still committees and commissions that are out of date. And I'm wondering what's the status with that?
I would defer to your governing body secretary.
I think this is, I'm going to talk about it during the discussions. Is it okay if we discuss it during the discussion items?
I'm sorry, say again?
The committee issue, I'm going to be discussing it during the discussion item. Okay. Okay.
All right, okay. That'll be it for me, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to number 9, A through D. Any questions or comments from the council members? Council President?
No, he can go
Councilman
first.
Patel.
He might ask the questions I'm going to ask.
Okay.
I think, we had a discussion on the Jackson Avenue. Is there a plan to table this resolution?
Yes, but I think we'll be doing it Wednesday, right?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Question.
Councilman Brescher?
Yeah, B, Shore Top Construction for the Edison courts, $60,000. Are we giving it to them because we like them, or is there a reason that we're going to give them this $60,000, that they deserve $60,000?
I will have Roy answer this. Ray?
I'm not 100% sure I understand your question.
Okay.
The vendor for the project that was awarded the project, when we bid it out, was Shore Top Construction. They went to go ahead. There's, again, don't quote me on it, I think it's 10, 12 different courts throughout town. They went to start, as they have started with, as you could see, they're working all over town. They went over to Mini BVL in the back court. They went ahead to perform the work over there. They had issues, so far the only court, they had issues that the underneath the substrate wasn't holding up. So it was going to be a mill and pave or a partial reconstruction. When they put the piece of equipment on it, it started pumping. We then went ahead and did test pits, and I know probably the question is, why wouldn't you do test pits in advance? And in 27 years of doing basketball and tennis courts, I've never done a test pit, and I've done probably 100, 200 courts in my tenure. Basketball and tennis courts are typically something you don't do a test pit for. A whole new field construction, I would say, yeah, maybe. A known issue, which we had checked with engineering to see if there was, any notice of contamination or any issues or any red flags that we should be aware of over there. The answer to that was no. So we did do some test pits. It came back with a very clayey surface. They provided a very detailed proposal on how to remediate that. And that's where we're at.
Okay, so we could have done test pits, but we didn't. But we could have. But here's my other question, because I do know, like soil, right? We could do a test pit right where that table is, and that could come up clean, right? But where this is, it's not, right? For different types of soil. Would that be a true statement? Or if I do one test pit in the middle of this room, would you say the entire room is indicative of the same clay pit?
I think you're looking for a more scientific answer that should come for a licensed PE rather than from me.
Okay.
If you're looking for a generalized statement, which I'm happy to provide, but if you're looking for more scientific information, and let me start with the first one. Yes, you could have done test pits. Every road reconstruction, you could do a test pit. Every mill and pave of a road, we're doing hundreds of them this year, you could do a test pit. The practicality of doing a test pit on a tennis court or on a basketball court is pretty much slim to none. It's not an industry practice to do a test pit on basketball or tennis courts. As far as soil and testing and so on and so forth, there is a scientific methodology behind people that are much smarter than me and have different licenses that I do, go methodically through that process. We have a consultant engineer who goes ahead and works with various different companies to perform that type of testing. So I would really defer, in any more greater detail on that, and the means and methodology really would need to be answered by someone other than me, other than the fact of we get the results, and as you've seen the results and we've shared results with you, we're looking for the bottom line, and the bottom line is, do we have the ability, or is the material that we may be using, is it safe to use? That's all we care about. In any of the projects that we have done or that I have been part of, that's the notification, and I believe that was provided to council already.
All right, Sonia, do we have anybody that would be like a site civil engineer, somebody that might know about any of that kind of stuff, about soils?
It's a consulting engineer.
We have several engineers on. We have a consulting engineer, so if that answers your question.
Well, I mean, is there anybody here that would know anything about soils?
We have a licensed engineer. However, this would require more expert advice.
I have a general question of somebody that might know about soils.
So I think we're talking about a difference of perception in terms of how the project is managed. I understand and respect your opinion about doing borings.
No, Sonia,
Or
I'm
bearings,
sorry.
rather. I'm using the wrong
I'm
word.
sorry. I was just wondering. I thought maybe somebody here might have known a little something about soils and how they could be, and how when you do a boring, right, it could be they come up clean, but they're not. In fact, I think we had that issue that was brought to our attention for a previous change order. So here's where my question is. If the soil, how big is this tennis court? What are you putting in? How big is it?
It's replacing what's existing there.
Okay, but how big
So
is
it's
it?
2 courts,
2 courts. How big would that be? About 80 by 80 or?
ballpark.
Okay, 80 by 80. And that mini BVL property is like, what, 40 acres? So my question is, as opposed to a $60,000 change order, why wouldn't you move it to a place where you had suitable soil within there that also works within the park that's there, as opposed to like we did with the baseball field, I think it was, removing a bunch of soil that's no good?
So I'm happy to answer that question, and I'm not sure when the last time you were up to mini BVL, or maybe you frequent it, maybe you know it, like the back of your hand. That space there is pretty much locked up for the use, meaning you have a playground area that's going to be a new playground. You have 2 different areas that are courts. The one court closest to the building is going to stay. You could have gone ahead and wiped out a bunch of trees and then removed all the stumps and then had to fill that and then potentially build a court there. Possibility. You have a soccer field that's there existing, that's utilized. And then on the upper side, you have a baseball field. So not to mention that our trail network all connects into the lower court and this other set of courts.
Well, I guess where I go with it is every project, right, that we've done with soil, with fields, what I see are change orders, right? I've seen a $500,000 change order, now a $60,000 change order. And so we don't go checking the soils here because you said, right, we typically don't. But here in Edison, it looks like you have a problem with a lot of the projects we're doing where the soil is not suitable there. I mean, I would have assumed that since it was an existing court, that existing court was built when?
Way before my time,
Right.
as well
Probably
as
when we were
as
young.
well as all of the courts in Edison.
Okay.
And again, we've gone ahead, and like I said, we've gone ahead and probably remedied 10 already, 12 already, zero issue. It's not, and I think anybody in the industry would tell you, doing test pits on basketball courts and tennis courts is not something that's normally done in the industry. It's a fact.
Okay, not doing them just cost us $560,000 with the $500
I think
for
you're
the
mixing
baseball
oranges
field.
and apples. We're talking about you're conflating.
It's all fruit.
You're conflating. Well, you're conflating
Change
a
order is
soccer
a change
field.
order.
You're conflating a soccer field with hard court surfaces.
The hard
Two
court
different-
surface is there.
Correct.
Why didn't we just resurface over it? I mean,
And
this
wait,
is
but
where.
that's your.
I think, Councilman Bush.
Okay, no, let me just make my statement. This is where this administration, right, is just horrendous. They don't take into account any council people for their thoughts or what they're doing on anything. What they do is they go and they rely just on one person, right? And then every project they have done has turned out to be a disaster with change orders after change orders. So that would be a council president. I mean, I'm here, I'm a resident, I'm paying taxes, and what I see is just overspending on everything we do, and I'm just getting frustrated. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brescher. Thank you, Ray. Moving on to number 10, Department of Public Works. Any questions from A through E? Or any comments?
People have asked about the no bid contracts, I guess, but, and I've spoken to Sonia, right? These are, we're going to classify them not as no bid because they were bid by a cooperative. My question of the administration is, and I'd like to have this by, by tomorrow, let's say, so I can take a look at it. There are multiple cooperatives that we're signed up with. I would like to see what fencing costs from those other cooperatives, number one. I'd also like to see what we paid last year for fencing when we went out and bid fencing. So if I can just get that, for tomorrow before our meeting on Wednesday, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure, Council President, I can certainly provide that information. Just for a point of clarification, these are through co-ops and state contracts, they're all bid. So the terminology used, no bid, is not factual because they are bid. The state just does it or the co-ops that we belong to.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 11.
Council President, before we move to 11, question on E, Sonia. I think the first part or the first phase of this project is done. This is the second phase, right? Installing more the traffic control signs, support hardware that includes anything around the crosswalks or those things. Is this coming from the capital project?
You're referring to 11A for sewer?
E.
Oh.
No, he's still on 10,
Oh.
Sonia.
10E, okay.
Because we had two parts in the capital board ordinance.
Let me just look at the budget account number here. Do you have the certification of funds?
Or you can let me know by Wednesday.
We're just looking for the certification of funds. It's supposed to be on here. Who can explain the account number here?
Councilman, this is like a lot of the other resolutions that we do. This is for multiple items to say, we're going to use this co-op, and these are the different vendors, and this is the dollar amount that we may end up spending. This is a every year process. We probably got 10 of these, whether it's auto parts or plow parts or signage. So it's not attached specifically to a operating budget or a capital budget. It depends upon the time and what the need is. That explains.
My question was only whether it is coming from the operating budget or the capital.
Right. It could be either or depending upon what the need is. An example, if for signage, we did all this wonderful LED signs around the town. We passed a capital budget specifically for that. That came out of capital. If we need to go buy 10 new street signs, probably would come out of our operating budget, as an example.
Okay, that does concerns me. Again, thank you for that answer. That does concerns me. If you're not segregating what capital means in terms of the resolution, when we approve the funds, the capital resolution needs to be separate from the operating, and that's the classification I was looking for. Not mixing one thing in a bundle and say, hey, we might use part capital, part operating. Doesn't sound good to me.
We'll have that for you before Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Moving on to number 11A. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, moving on to number 12, A through E. Any questions or comments?
Council President?
Councilman Brescher.
Yes. B. This is to fill our air compressors for the fire department. I just have some questions about this.
What's the question?
Well, if I wanted to fill tanks, like my dive tanks or whatever, right, I could buy a machine for $4,500. My question would be, how many firehouses do we have? Because you want to do the math, and everybody else could have their individual ones. I guess I found one of the better ones that they have for sale for about $18,000. This one here is $86,000. It's a high pressure one, so that they could use a cascade like system. And I don't know why we can't fill the compressors. I mean, why we can't fill the tanks without a cascade. If we have the equipment, right, why do we need a cascade system to set up? And is this just in one central location? Or, because I was told we would fill the bottles at like one location, then we bring them to others. So I'm not really sure. You know, well, so when I look online for this, you know, and you see 18 grand get you this top-notch thing, and I see 86,000, it's just questionable.
Sonia, can someone answer that for us?
Let me just bring in the deputy chief, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, so first and foremost, it is a cascade system. It's a cascade air compressor system. It fills our SCBA bottles, which is what we use to breathe in IDLH environments, which are inherently dangerous life hazard environments, right? Fires, hazmat situations, et cetera. I don't know that you're gonna find one for $18,000, but either way, the majority, this is a grant that we received to pay for this machine. So,
Chief, right, if it's getting paid by a grant,
yeah, this is
that's on the rest of the, you know, the state. Right, I mean, my real question was, I noticed that I know that they have smaller units. So
they do, and the pressure, the reason why our pressure is so high is our SCBA bottles they're filled to 5,500 pounds, so we need to be able to get to that and obviously above that to some extent to make sure that we're filling our bottles appropriately.
Right, and I would just go in that, I know they make smaller units, so if each firehouse had the smaller unit that could fill individual tanks, then you don't need the cascade system, you know, to bring it down, to do it. But then every firehouse has it, as opposed to transporting.
That could be expensive, and then the maintenance and everything on top of that. So right now we'd have one at Station 2 right down the street, and this is actually going into Station 7 down in Raritan Center.
Wait, Raritan Center?
Yeah, the one in the Public Safety Center at Station 7.
Do we open that?
Not at this time, not yet, but
Is it going to be open?
I hope so.
Are we going to have police there? Or is that like the substation on Oak Tree Road where we got the police thing and then no one's there? The only reason why I ask is that no one's been in that substation in Raritan Center in quite some time.
So we hope to use it at some point. Right now, we do have to put some renovations into it. It's currently being used as a training facility for both departments. So it's currently active, and there are vehicles there. So we just need to put some work into it at the moment.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to ask, Chief, so it was 55,000 PSI for the compressor?
5,500.
6,000 PSI, and our bottles are rated at 5,500, so 5,500.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Anybody else with a question or a comment?
Council President?
Councilor Pointer.
Just because I pulled up the model number online, it is coming in at the 75 number that is in the backup documents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to number 13 for A and B. Any questions or comments?
Just, you know, we talked about this at the last meeting, but really the question I did ask Sonia, we didn't really go through the answer, but the only alarming thing in the audit report, I mean, there's a few things, right? There's one that we're not fully funding or like our health plan kind of stuff, right? Which is something I've been talking about, and we had to take money out to pay for the health thing last year. That would really be the administration's problem, because it would take away from their budgeting, right? You'd have to pay the insurance because we're self-insured. So they would have to get the money from somewhere else that wouldn't be budgeted at the time like we did last year. But the alarming parts are there are, I believe, 2 items that are repeat items from like the year prior. So when the auditor makes a recommendation, typically you put together an action plan, you implement that action plan, and then what ends up happening are it's corrected. But over here, it wasn't corrected, and it was picked up again. So my question is this just, we're not going to pay attention to what the auditor's recommendations are? Or?
No, we certainly do, and I appreciate you looking into some of this information that was provided. With regard to the benefits, so prior to this administration, and it hasn't been my experience that we use capital funding to cover reserves for any sort of payout, if you will. So when we looked at it, and I looked at it, I said we certainly should not be doing that and charging future taxpayers money to do that. So what we have been putting into reserves is money we did not, as you know, in these past 2 budgets, put in for ordinance to a capital bond ordinance to subsidize that cost. So that was one. As far as the other repetitive recommendations, I'm just going to pass this on to our finance director.
The other recommendation deals with posting to the general ledger on a timely basis. It's not that it hadn't been done, it's just not on a timely basis. And that's in large part to the fact that we've been cleaning up a lot of issues on our books over the past 2 years. And I can assure you that you will not see this comment again in the 2024 audit report. And just to
One of the, I don't mean to interrupt
Go
you,
ahead.
Ken. One of the adjustments we have made is having each department responsible to do deposits right there and then. So they are going through training. It's being scheduled between our finance department and whoever's assigned in that department, whether it's human resources or it's planning and zoning. They will have a machine so that these deposits are made on the spot rather than going through a chain of custody through several departments. So we don't find that being efficient, and certainly our auditors have made mention of that, and we can certainly streamline it with the new technology.
Okay, the insurance, you said something about we're going to put, how are we going to handle the insurance?
We have been putting reserves in there.
Oh, so we're going to do it with reserves. We're not going to do it with like any kind of bonding or swapping
we're building up the
capital
reserve.
for it, or
Correct.
okay. So that'll something that'll show up in our budget, let's say next year, or you're just going to allocate part of your reserves for that to cover that.
We've put money into reserves, so we can let you know what we have. Oh, I think we've put in about half to 3/4 in. Yeah, about 3/4. I think we put in 3/4
Okay.
so far. So we're looking to have a much healthier reserve there, so that they're real snapshots of time rather than again charging future taxpayers.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Council President.
Councilman Patil?
Thank you. Just on record, question to Kane, or if Sonia, you want to respond. The audit. This audit is the sampling of some of the big line items. This is not a full-blown audit for every single line item of the budget. Is that correct?
Well, in an audit such as this, they do sampling. They don't go through every single transaction.
Okay. Now, the bigger question is what happens to, some of the line items that are questionable for this council, but they are not covered under this audit. What happens to that? And I give the example, right? I'm looking for the audit per se of the trust fund that is very specific to the events. I did ask about the record that are very specific to mayor spending, in-state, out-state. And those items will not be audited because those are not big ticket items, but those are important to know, what is happening to the funds. So those line items will not be covered under this audit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So what we are doing, though, in pursuant to your request, Councilman, is we are preparing a report of any trust fund that has donation activity for 22, 23, and 24.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 14, from the council member of the Planning Board, Councilman Pointer.
Thank you, Council President. I took the recommendation from Councilman Brescher about 2 meetings ago about submitting the report to disperse for the council's review, so that's what I did for this report. And I asked the clerk to include that in the meeting minutes when it does come up for approval. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Pointer. Moving on to number 15, the communication, the petition for the Nottingham Road was received. And moving on to number 16, discussion items, starting with my right, Councilman Brescher.
Well, look, we've taken care of a lot of my items already during the meeting. Warehouses, right, we took care of that. Jackson Avenue, we took care of. The audit, we took care of. The council meetings, I put council meetings on Zoom, but there was a request that we codify, like our live meetings and that. I don't know that that's a bad idea for us to do it. That's something like, at some point, right, there were some council people that sat up here and they passed some kind of silly rule that council members have to give their questions for discussion items on a Wednesday. It's the same sort of silly rule. Just so that we're moving that forward, that's basically saying like, this body is looking to have our meetings live streamed, is where I'm kind of going with that. The Zoom was something that, I'm hoping the administration is going to work on so we don't end up with the litigation from somebody that can't make it here. Like I seen the person that came to the meeting in a wheelchair. I happened to watch a video on him where it took 2 people for him to get out of a van, by putting ramps up and stuff. So that's not a reasonable access to here, for him to need 2 people to come here. So I think a reasonable accommodation would be a Zoom for people with disabilities. So I hope the administration can, look at that and get to the bottom of it. Did we ever get anything on the reports on that shifting of the contaminated soil that my council colleague brought up? Because if we were moving the soil, right, then it should have been tested and we should have those test results. Can I get a copy of those?
Sure, all of the reports that we have on file were sent to Councilman Patil. I can certainly recirculate them to you.
Yes, if you can send them over to me. Public advocate ordinance, I spoke to my colleague, and we're going to set up a meeting before we go through and post this. Update on threats. You know, every time I look around town, I hear about burglaries, break-ins, catalytic converters. Crime is just, you know, but our mayor, I see, you know, he takes the police on vacation with him everywhere he goes. He has them standing in the rain as his personal bodyguard because, as our chief said, there were credible threats. I want to tell everybody a quick little story. On the Board of Education, there was a threat, and our police department at that time was actually able to track hidden IP addresses right to a child's home. And the child thought that they could get away with it, but through the use of Google, which our police department has access to, and they'll help them. So if there really are any threats, I'd like to get an update as to who our police department has caught that has threatened our mayor. I mean, being that a councilwoman in Saraville was murdered, executed, I would think that this would be important. I think that it would be a very simple thing for them to track threats of an elected mayor in New Jersey. And I'd like an update to see like who they caught. Can we get that at some point? I mean,
I would just defer to the police with regard to any reporting. The administration wouldn't have that.
Okay.
So if the deputy chief could just speak on that.
Councilman, good evening, everybody. Unfortunately, right now, I don't have any information I can give you at this time, but I will speak to the chief, and one of us will get back to you in reference to that question.
Right, I'd like to get how many people we've caught so far.
Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Now, the next one, I have the mayor's expenditures, right? And I received a document that gave me expenditures. When I add it up, I come up to, he gave us a $20,000 check, post-dated, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, when I added everything up, I came up to over $20,000. Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were finished, but I can.
Oh, no, right. So I'm looking at how come the mayor hasn't paid back the additional $725 plus any overtime that we had to cover for manpower that was missing here at the time. And also the credit card statements. So what I did receive was some gas receipts, right? And that's really nice. But I believe that I should be entitled to look at all of our credit card receipts for the month of August. From every credit card that we have. I mean, as a sitting councilman, I'd like to see every credit card receipt from the credit card statement so that I know that he didn't buy a Big Mac when he went into the gas station, you know, on a taxpayer's dime.
So as far as our procurement card goes for the township, the mayor does not have access to that, nor do the officers that were traveling. So that it's gone through the council, and council approves who's able to have the procurement card. During your bill list, it's my understanding you get a copy of what is charged in Bank of America. Okay, so that procurement card is very specific in terms of what is allowed to be charged to. So any travel expenses are not allowed to be charged to a procurement card. Okay. So there's nothing in our statement, I can certainly provide you a copy of that again, that was used during that time. As far as the expense report that I submitted to you in terms of the personnel that was used, the calculated overtime, that's what was calculated, was about, I want to say 6,800, and then added on to that was 400 and change of the receipts. So that was what was incurred during that trip, if you will. And so what the mayor provided was above and beyond what the actual cost was to the township.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I have a gross number that the police officer, so the police officers were away for a week, right? Why can't we get something that shows me that, like what they got paid? And where I'm going with it is, you're telling me it's the overtime, right? What about the straight time?
So let me just go back, and I believe the chief also answered this in that there's special assignment and they are directed by the chief. So as far as their assignment goes, that's separate. They're still employed by the township, but anything outside of their working hours.
You're telling me that the chief is saying it's okay for the mayor to take police officers on vacation? You didn't really just tell me that, did you?
No, I didn't actually. I think
okay.
those are your words.
No, because you just told me the chief said that it was authorized.
It was a special detail.
The special detail is authorized to go on vacation to the DNC with the mayor, because that's where he went. I mean, is this, Chief, do I have to go and stand in front of Trenton with Attorney Plackens? Because I will go do that this week.
Councilman, well, first of all, I wouldn't dictate it as a vacation. It was an assignment authorized through the chief's office. Any questions specific about that, I would defer to him, but I wouldn't categorize it as a vacation.
He went to a Democratic National Convention, and you wouldn't categorize that as a vacation? That was what, business? I'm a Democrat, Chief. I'm a Democrat. But you're telling me that the mayor can go to some political event in Chicago and you actually can stand there, or our chief will come to my next meeting and actually say that the police were working and the mayor was working in Chicago at the convention? Don't tell me you would say that, Chief. Maybe the other chief's going to come up with that. Let's have him at the next meeting.
Again, sir, I wouldn't categorize it as a vacation.
You
but
don't, but the residents do, sir.
But I will defer to the chief, and if you have any follow-up questions, I'll let him know.
Yeah, I'd like to see him here. And just let the chief know that I will have people down in Trenton, okay, with signs asking for the Attorney General to investigate this, okay? And when I say investigate it, investigate him, you, the BA, everybody that was involved, all right, in this cover-up. That was a vacation. That was not work. Our mayor, we don't pay our mayor to go to Chicago to a Democratic National Convention. And if it is not work, then it is a vacation, sir. I don't care how else you want to classify it. Maybe we can get Chief Bryant in here next meeting. I'd love to see this. I mean, this, when you talk about law enforcement and that badge you wear, right? This is important. That badge stands for something. But when we do this to the public, it gives the public here everything. Everything has to be questioned at this point. I mean, if you're telling me my chief is going to come here and tell me that he isn't classifying this as vacation, that this is the work of the mayor to go to this, okay? I'm going to ask the chief. Can we have him here next week, Tanya? I am just livid.
Councilman, he'll be here Wednesday.
Thank you. Well, I don't get to speak on Wednesday. I only get to speak on work session.
Maybe the next work session.
Well, will he be here next work session? Don't want to do this publicly, on the record. That would be it, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Rusher. Councilman Coyle had to step away for a family emergency. So moving on to Council Vice President.
Yes, we've covered Jackson Avenue, we've covered council meetings on Zoom. With regard to Ferrante House, the air quality testing, I can just say I've gotten an answer generally that there are a lot of issues and that recommendations have been made for remediation, and we'll see what that brings and how long that takes, but it's not sounding like that's going to be resolved anytime real soon. it was brought up about the Edison TV camera angles change, and I also am not happy about this. I don't understand the point to it. I do think that the public speakers should be given their due and should be seen. And I'm wondering, at what point can we go back to the way it was?
I can certainly take your recommendations and comments back to the administration.
Can anyone explain why this change was made? What the benefit was to this change?
Again, I would just reach out to the mayor.
And finally, the North Edison baseball parking lot, which has been in bad shape. It's still in bad shape. And do we have a time frame for when this can be finally, at long last, paved?
It is on this current paving list for '24. So more than likely, it'll be done in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Council Vice President. We are four. All right, Councilman Patel? Yep, in fact, I was,
The councilman at the end, I apologize.
I wanted to make the comments that please do not leave your dais because we are only barely four, so till the end of this meeting. Let me start with my question. Glendale status, where we stand in terms of litigation or anything. Have we made any progress?
We bought the property, as you know, and in order to prevent any warehouse from going there, so there's no plans right now.
No, I understand that there are no plans at this point in time, but is there any status in terms of how far we are in whether it's in litigation or any updates per se? Because we are paying $50,000 every single month because we bought the property and we are not using it.
Again, the urgency of the residents was to prevent any warehouse. As far as the litigation, I would defer to council on providing an update, probably in closed session at some point.
I just need a one-liner statement saying, are we progressing or it is standstill?
I don't have an update for you. I can get you one, though.
Okay, please. And the reason I'm saying on record again, there were multiple fundraisers done by mayor, and especially Glendale was brought up in the discussion for the housing development. And that's the reason I'm asking status. I heard that this was purchased under the open space money or an additional bond money, and hopefully that stays as an open space because the intent was not to let the warehouse be developed, but not the residential, definitely. My second one is Stelton Community Center, how far we are in the progress. I heard renovation going on, but is there anything slated date, like when it will be open?
Right now, we're working on the exterior of the building because there's a lot of remediation work that needs to happen in the interior of the building. So work's being done, obviously not as fast as we'd like it, but the remediation needs to happen first, and I'll get you an update as to that.
Maybe next year, Q1, Q2, any
I would hope
timeline?
next year, yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next one is, this is a long-standing, I don't know why this is falling through the crack and we are not really resolving this flooding issue. I brought this up multiple times. My former councilman, council colleague, Bob Dill also was chasing this one. After many, many years, we are still here. Sonia, can you give the update? Stephen will Calvert, Summer Street, JP Stevens, Wending Brook. We spoke several times on this topic, right? But have we taken any of these areas seriously to let's resolve this?
I'd just like to bring Brian up if that's possible, Council President.
Because we have enough studies done, we have spent a lot of money on the engineering side. We need to see things in action now.
So for Stephenville and Calvert, I've been working with our attorney to solidify some of the easements that we originally thought were in place. Some apparently appear to never have been filed.
So I've been working with Mr. Northgrave, the attorney from his office that had been handling this when they were taking care of the easements is no longer there. And so we've been going through, I've been pulling some from the county. Unfortunately, the county didn't actually record the easements in a way that's easily accessible. So if I look up some of these properties, even though I know we have easements and I have the copies of the easements in my file from Mr. Northgrave's office, you can't find it on the county website unless you have the actual instrument number. So unless we send someone down to try to locate them in person physically, which may or may not be possible depending on how they were filed there as well, we're having progress, but slow progress on making sure that we have all of these so my firm doesn't have to duplicate efforts in trying to get some additional easements that should already exist, but some of them may not. So that's what we've been working on for the last couple of weeks with Mr. Northgrave's cooperation.
The reason I'm saying this one is this is probably 10th year of this project, and we have spent millions of dollars.
So I cannot say it's been 10 years. I've been in town 8, and I started working on this roughly 6, and a lot of the downtime, to my understanding, has been for the easement acquisition, because that alone has been at least 3 years.
Understood, and that easement, when Attorney Northgrave was here, I offered, because I live in that neighborhood, I offered and help. If someone is not given easement, I will be happy to knock the door and talk to the owner, because there is a significant impact to that neighborhood. And if there is, again, I'm willing to volunteer if still that's a problem, but we need to move really fast. If you just imagine that $3-4 million in engineering services that we paid, what's the net worth as of today? You might be working for the last 6 years, but I know for the fact that it's 10. This is my 10th year on the council, and from day one I'm chasing this project. So that $3 million could have been $10 million today.
The first step I need to finish is figure out which ones don't actually have easements. But if there are still issues with properties that don't have easements actually recorded, more than happy to use your help, sir.
Okay. The next one is Summer Street. There's no easement required here. I don't know where we stand.
CME had performed a study. They issued a report last year. Just paraphrasing the report, the majority of their findings states that residents should be installing backflows and so forth to prevent the flooding. I need to read that.
I know, you read my mind.
I need to go through that report a little bit more to see what else can be done. For the next one, JP Stevens and Grove, I know we've been talking with DPW. This is a much bigger lift. This is something that would involve a large drainage study, and with that would require DEP permitting. It's something that would have to get pushed into a capital project.
Okay. And how about Winding Brook? I don't know if you visited Winding Brook.
I personally have not. I don't want to speak for DPW. My conversations with several of the DPW superintendents is that they have been going through the creeks behind Winding Brook and keeping it clear.
Yep. And the reason I'm saying is because half of the backyard of some of the residents has been eroded because of the water flow.
Okay, that's a slightly different issue than I've been looking into. We can look into the erosion aspect separately.
Yeah. And that's my next point, is their water stream cleanup scheduling, because this deal directly connects there. So let's start the discussion on Winding Brook, unless you want to answer the question, or Sanya, you want to answer the question. I remember that we have established process to clean these water lines or the stream lines. Ray was generous enough when the flooding happened, especially on Shivnil Parkway, but I have not seen, Winding Brook, or even for that matter, JP Steven, on the radar of the cleanup. I don't know, again, I would like to really see the record, on the record, that, we are really cleaning those water lines.
Sir, I'm happy to send you all pictures of both facilities. Edison, JP Stevens, that area back there is about as high profile as it gets. Not going to have that flood again. at least not on my watch, unless there's a 5-inch rainstorm in an hour. But I can tell you, we're there 3-4 times a year on that one. Winding Brook, I'll get back to you on, but I know Jermaine and the guys in the road department have been stellar going through the streams. But I'm happy to text you pictures out of, we do a pretty decent job of documenting all of that.
And I do have several pictures of that neighborhood and happy to continue that discussion. Thank you for that. Next one is Kilmore cricket field status. Just extending the conversation my colleague brought up here on the contamination. Sonia, thank you for sending that report. But I'm looking at the end-to-end process saying when the soil was lifted from the Papiani Park and dumped on the Kilmore, I need by truck that record how many trucks of soil was moved from one area to another area. And the reason I'm saying is, if you look at even the Papiani Park, the turf field, that expenses has $200,000 plus on cleaning the contamination. So I don't know whether it was 10, 20 feet all the way down, but by the time the soil was already moved out from the field on the Kilmore. So even though you said you submitted all the record, but they're not complete in the sense. So what I'm looking is how many trucks, in fact, I should go at the license number of that truck. What was the tonnage, how many yards of soil we put in there, and have we tested before putting that soil? That's the report I'm looking, not the after fact report. And you don't have to give it me now, you can communicate me through email.
There was also a letter followed by that report from CME that I sent to you, and I just sent it to Councilman Brescher this evening, from CME regarding the parameters of the testing and the soil. There's their professional opinion in terms of the parameters of the soil from when they picked it up to the transportation. So they're looking at from all angles. That was my understanding from CME.
I think if somebody from CME needs to come to the podium and answer my question, because when they picked up the sample, it is picked up from the Papiani Park, not from the Kilmore field. That's the time. I'm looking at the timing when the soil was lifted from Papiani Park and went on the Kilmore. Just remember, Kilmore is going to be used, the field is going to be used will be used by youths, and we don't need a contaminated soil there, even though hopefully it is not contaminated, but I need the proof that it is not really contaminated. In terms of the status, I know we have glorified, I see the township symbol there, it's really looking nice, though I'm not happy with the elevation, because I guarantee you the number of accidents that are going to happen there, the ball is going to roll right on the Plainfield Avenue, because that field is not going to be used by tennis one, it will be used by the leather ball, and whoever understands the cricket, be ready. That's going to be disaster, the way it is done. But looking good. The DPW did a good job on, getting that beautified, especially on the front side. And hopefully those bushes stays there. I saw the paving was done, so that's another good thing. But I'm more concerned about when it will be open and the actual usage and the accident that's going to cause there. Can I get the tentative schedule when that field is going to be ready? By next season, hopefully? March, April, May? Do we have any idea?
Are you referring to, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Number E, Kilmore Cricket Field.
Okay, let me just have Mr. Porio come up. I apologize.
Can we get some rain? I mean, it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer in October than it normally is, and for 3 months it hasn't rained. We've seeded, we've aerated, we've fertilized. All I need is for you and all of the cricket people to pray for rain so I can germinate some seed. But I'm hoping we have, and my roads guys and the rest of the department probably will not be too happy with me on this, but I'm hoping we actually have a pretty decent snowy winter, which will help get us a pop in the spring. But I mean, if you want documentation, I'll give you 1,000 bags, I'm being facetious, of seed that we put up there and fertilizer and malorganite. I mean, if I could just get some rain, and we've been trying to water it actually with the water truck, But over, two cricket fields, I mean, that's like, I don't want to use the expression in a public meeting, but I'm sure you understand. I mean, we've been trying to do everything humanly possible. If we get the right weather, if we get some rain, you'll be playing on it in the spring.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, I have been to the field multiple times. I know what the work has gone into that, and I really appreciate. My only the question is yes, no. Hopefully, it will be available during the next cricket season. The next one, rider DPW area beautification. A lot, Ray, for you. I know, Sonia, you said it's through purchasing. I think a month ago. Are we on track getting
You're referring to the fencing?
tree fencing?
Yeah.
Trees to be planted along the fence.
Step one is to replace the fencing, which is on the docket for Wednesday's meeting.
Yep.
We've got to get that done first. We'll see where we are at the end of the year as far as weather. Who knows? We do have items bidded out as far as trees. You and I personally talked about putting some trees up there, but I've got to get the fencing done first.
I understand that, but my understanding based on the answers I received, we are getting there. We'll have the tree fencing because that neighborhood is not looking good.
Say one more time, please.
No, my understanding was we are not talking about metal fencing. My understanding was the beautification, and this is not the first time on my discussion agenda.
Councilman, we're doing a fencing around the facility. On the neighbor side is a very high fencing that's going to have the green slats into it, and then in front of that would be trees.
Correct, and that's the tree I'm questioning because I was told that during the fall we're going to plant the trees.
Right, but I've got to get the fencing in first, which is on the docket for, hopefully you'll vote for it Wednesday.
The scheduling is not my business, again, when you want to do metal fencing, but the trees are important. Fencing can be done any point in time. Trees cannot be planted any point in time. So it's up to our priority, how we choose, pick and choose the work. And I was assured by this fall, we're going to plant the trees.
Right, fencing first, then trees.
Again, I'm repeating my word. I know you're giving political answers today. You could be a good politician. I'm asking black and white. Will you be able to plant trees?
We have trees that are on bid. We have done all of the proper procurement. We have to put the fencing up, depending upon when the fencing goes up and what the weather conditions are at that time will determine whether we can then turn around and plant the trees.
Okay, so hopefully this will be done because this is not the first time I said this has been on my agenda many, many times, and I was assured. You can go back to the recording. I'll be happy to replay those recordings for you.
No need.
Right.
In the fall. And again, we've gone through the procurement. This is the time frame in which we could get the items procured, and we will follow that process.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully we'll see the trees soon. The next one, Clara Barton, Amber Avenue, inner roads. While I'm driving that side of the house, the roads are not really good. The utility company really, cut through. Not just on Amber Avenue, but also in roads. I don't think they followed our ordinance. And I don't know why we are not enforcing those ordinances, because I remember this is less than 5 years we paved the road. So what is the path forward? Are they going to credit and we are going to repave, or they are going to repave these roads?
We'll take a look at the roads. Is there a specific road outside of Amboy Ave?
I think, you guys should have the list. We have the AI, software going and picking the trucks, right? You would know what trees are dug up in the whole Clara Barton.
Yeah, well, usually when someone brings up an issue, if there's a specific area, I'd love to look into that as soon as possible.
We have the traffic unit on the ground. We have the DPW on the ground. I don't know, you're asking councilmen to go and give me the list of the areas. This is insane. I would say that, send someone who is Mr. Coyle in your office to go and look at the neighborhood and find out all the streets and see.
That's a great suggestion. We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do our job, rather than asking council people the question. Next one, the Colwood Grove traffic study. I was told that not much will be done that neighborhood. And I think, mayor was talking to the residents and he said, we need to do the traffic study. I don't know. we have the police chief. Do we need a traffic study? Need to spend $50,000-$60,000 for the Calvert Grove traffic?
So they're done internally. I'm not sure what monies you're referring to.
It's by the way, it is in social media. It's written.
I don't look at social media, so I apologize. I mean, that's not factual information other than opinion. But as far as that, what we have done is a traffic study. As you mentioned, the mayor did talk to residents, so we're putting all together the findings. Some of them which are not appealing. It talked about potential dividers. I'm not sure if that's really the plan to go. However, we're putting all of that together unless the chief has anything specific other than what I've provided.
Yeah, before Chief says something, I believe the traffic study was done while we put the stop signs, Ray did a wonderful job in that neighborhood. Striping was done. My understanding was traffic study was done, and that's the reason we reduced the speed 25 miles an hour. I don't know what else the traffic study needs to be done there.
Well, just so you're aware, from a police perspective, a traffic study from our perspective deals with speed and volume, which we did. And that was one of the contributing things that was done leading up to the designation of that zone being 25 versus 35. Right. Anything over that is really out of the hands of the police department, probably falls more in an engineering purview. I can't speak for engineering, but that's from a police perspective, we've done what we can effectively do at that intersection.
Okay, so the question to engineering, do you have abilities in-house to do the traffic study?
To be blunt, I can't do it in-house. I don't have the manpower to do it. I did receive responses back for quotations from 2 of the 3 firms I reached out to last week. Those are under review. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but I can get them for you for Wednesday.
Do you know the ballpark number?
I honestly don't remember. I'm sorry.
It's not going to come free, right? It's going to be outsourced, that work.
No, it's definitely coming at a price. We are going to be paying an engineering firm to do the work. They're going to be doing a traffic study and seeing what the repercussions are of potential options on Grove, whether or not it's elimination of a turning movement and how that would trickle down to affect the neighborhood. That was all asked to be part of their pricing.
Thank you. And that goes back to Sanya, the way you answered saying it's an internal study. What I told you, it's going to cost you $50,000, $60,000, which you denied. But it appears that now engineering department is not self-sufficient. They need to go out and get the vendor to do the study. So my question is, can we get some clarity whether those bids or those contracts by next council meeting?
As Brian explained, he'll get that to you on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. And I think the last item has been covered, council meeting scheduling and Zoom. I don't know why we cannot, or we enable the comments on the YouTube distribution. If that's going to be helpful, someone from administration can watch those meetings, look at the questions, probably have someone come to the podium and ask that question to this council or this body, including council president. Thank you, council. Thank you, council president.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Councilman Pointer.
Thank you, Council President. I'm just going to ask my colleague to take a copy and pass down, if that's okay. But while he's doing that, ordinances for consideration. I'm going to tie in my first one to the change order at Miniville. Last meeting, I mentioned potentially codifying the requirements for environmental impact statements on applications before the land use boards. In the environmental impact studies, some of the specifications that they have to provide are actually information on soils. So as an example, to Miniville, earlier in the year at 39 Progress Street, there was an application that came accompanied with an environmental impact study, and in that, it specified that the soils in that area are type D. Type D soils, under the USG guidelines, are clay-type soils. So we could use this information as long as this database we're able to query it appropriately, but we could gather this information through our normal application processes and eventually use that to better our bid procurement process. Because if we were able to know that, hey, this application before that's 2,000 feet away from any BVL specified that there are these types of soils, we would have been at least made aware that that condition may be here. The second one, if I could ask our legal, I had sent an email in regards to codifying in regards to invasive species. This was brought up by a resident that had requested us updating our ordinance, particularly on bamboo. I expanded the thought in regards to invasive species. I was just wondering if there was an update on a review of that.
I am in the process of reviewing those. There are some adjustments that have to be made. There were some other township matters that came up in the meantime that required immediate attention. So it is actually open on my desktop. I was looking at it today earlier just to see what I could do with at least the invasive species one. And then I can get to the other one as well.
Yeah.
So those are all being worked on.
That's fine.
We should have them ready for the next.
And I'm very well aware that I throw a lot at you guys, so no issue on the delay on my end.
Excuse me, Councilman Pointer, what I would just, as part of the process is that whatever department is going to enforce this, if we could just have them also review whatever ordinance that is being drafted, whether it's planning, zoning, or health department, just so that we know and to anticipate what those potential issues could be.
And that's actually one of the items that I'm looking for the administration to help guide, because it would be improper for me to say which one is more appropriate on this particular item. So I'm hoping that in that review, that will be clarified. So thank you.
Thank you for your work on that.
The last item, and this is what I just distributed out to my council colleagues, kind of ties in with the discussion with warehousing around the township. A lot of the warehouses that we currently have are zoned LI, light industrial. Those are, in my opinion, more appropriate at the Raritan Center, which is its own center, which is its own zone, RRD, Heller Park, which is LI, and Talmadge and the artery roads there. Those to me make sense based on the current environment for industrial parks or warehousing distribution facilities. I may mention at the last meeting, though, that there are other zones currently zoned LI that may not be as conducive to that. Those are the Silver Lake area, those are Woodbridge Avenue and Main Street, and that would also be Jackson Avenue / Amboy Avenue. You may also add in Whitman Avenue as an area of consideration, though based on the developments and such, a lot of those parcels are pretty much taken up. So I did not include that in here. For me, though, one of the ways to tackle without taking away economic utility for those other areas, Raritan, Talmadge, and Heller Park, to me, an option is then just to rezone different areas around the township that are more conducive. So what I have before you is just a little study for the recommendation of rezoning the LI zone off of Amboy Avenue and Woodbridge to a transition zone that would allow for more residential opportunity, protect the residents' interests there, though, by removing warehousing as an allowable guideline, and at the same time, phrasing it in a way where the existing businesses that are there, which are primarily contractor and manufacturing businesses, can remain intact and not be impeded upon. So I know I sent this to the administration for review. I'm not expecting an immediate response. I just wanted to let my colleagues know that this is a suggestion that I have, and I'm hoping that we can consider it. That would be it, Council President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Pointer. Yes, go ahead, Councilman Patel.
Councilman, thank you for doing the detailed study of, and especially I was very keen on the zone changes. We have spent 2.5 years on the master plan, and I heard we had the experts were involved in building the master plan. We spent good amount of money. I don't know why some of the things that you are mentioning were missed in the master plan, and now we are going back and redoing some of those things, unless they are already in the master plan.
Can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. There are actually recommendations in the master plan in regards to what this is looking to achieve. Now, the mode of how you actually achieve that, it's a matter of preference. You can do an overlay zone, you can do an area in need of rehabilitation or redevelopment, or you can do just a general zone change. That's at least to my understanding. This recommendation here is just taking the zone change approach, but particular to what it furthers in regards to the master plan, it recommends that the LI zone actually reduces in size. So in my thoughts is that one way to reduce it is to rezone certain areas that are currently zoned LI.
Understood. And if I heard correctly, and not to go back and forth, Council President, the recommendation for the master plan were adopted. Yes. Or they were accepted and adopted. Yes. And so what we are doing is basically acting and changing the actual zones if this body decides.
That's what I'm recommending and hoping to have support in doing, and that would be furthering the recommendations of the master plan.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Patel, and thank you, Councilman Pointer. As for me, I don't think I have a lot of updates. Main thing, let's start with the town committees. As pointed out by Council Vice President, we have a lot of committees that don't have meeting notes and a lot of committees that are active on paper but are actually not meeting and making an impact. So one of the ideas that
Council President, we need to pause the meeting because Councilman left the dais. Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you. If he's in the chamber, it still matters?
That's fine. We have Councilman come back. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, all right.
We have 5 now.
Came back.
Okay, all right. So, continuing my thought on the town committees, the idea is that this is going to be a project where we would, I would ask the Madam Clerk to reach out to each committee and ask them to provide us with, how many times they met in the last year. If they have any, hold on, let me just pull up my notes on this. Sorry. Okay, so the idea is that we would update these meeting notes on the website, and that kind of leads me to my question to Sonia. Where are we along in the website with the new update?
It will go live on Friday.
Friday, okay, awesome. So now that we have an updated website, the idea is to input the website with active information. So if a resident would like to follow along with all the issues or any particular issues that they want to bring through the committee, they can follow along in the minutes. So I was going to ask Madam Clerk to reach out to individual chairs of each committees and ask them these questions. How often have they met in the last year? How many members are actively attending? And how many are you short of your ideal? Do we have any meeting notes? And if they do, I would like to use those meeting notes and update our website so that we are up to date, at least with the information we have. I would also ask that if we can create a template that we can provide for the meeting notes as to we can capture the information we want. So it's a standardized template, and when we update it, everyone would have the same format, and it'll be easier to follow along. And I think that's a good start, and then I'll work on it to continue further that. It will be a project. I'm hoping to have this done maybe in the next month or so. So maybe add it to the discussion on the next work session. In terms of the pedestrian safety, the JPNL, did we get an update, Council?
The administration has provided me with some preliminary plans, shared those with JCP&L, and I am waiting on an update from them as to where they're at from their end. We knew that this was in dealing with PSE&G before we realized who actually owns the power lines, we knew that there might be some issues from their legal end of it regarding liability and things like that. So that's, I think, where the holdup is. They do have a small team that they use, apparently based out of Ohio. And so there's been some delays with communications with them that there's not a whole lot we can do about other than just keep pushing.
Just send another email. I'll ask you to send another email at each work session. Path on Central Ave, as we already discussed that. The economic developer, do we have a new look? Are we looking for a new economic developer? No? Is that something that the administration is thinking of doing, or is there a particular reason as to why not?
I can take it back to the mayor in terms of what his planning is as
Okay.
far as an economic developer.
I will have a conversation with the mayor on the economic development and the redevelopment agency, and I'll report back. Any update on the bike study? Bike study. Sonia?
So what specifically you're looking in terms of the bike study? I know we discussed a couple of things in terms of a trail.
Brian, if you're here, can you update me on the status of that full map of Edison as to where we stand on that?
Council President, I'm aiming to get that to you, I would say, beginning to mid-December.
Okay.
We had lost a staff member, so I got to pick up that as well.
Okay, that's fine. We'll wait for that. Traffic study, the stops at Inman and Old Raritan, are we in communication with the county in regards to that?
We are. We're still communicating with the county. We have to get their approval from their engineering firm, their engineers, which are looking at it. And so far, my understanding is that it's looking on a positive note to do something. So they're doing all of their due diligence in terms of the, whatever traffic studies they need to do.
Okay, and do they give you a timeline by any chance, or no?
No.
Okay. I figured that would be it. Any update on the Harding Ave and Oak Tree Road? I think that's the one that takes a long time. Okay, I'll skip that one. And I discussed the town committees. Well, that's about it for me. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
May I have a second?
Second.
That's a motion by Council Vice President, second by Councilman Pointer. All in favor? Aye. This meeting adjourns at 8:53. Charge me.